Cardboard drones. Sounds like a joke, right? Yet, these unassuming creations have become a nightmare for Russian forces, capable of obliterating jets and turning the tide in modern warfare. How did something so simple become so deadly? Putin's plans for an easy victory in Ukraine were shattered by a new era of warfare. His pride in a supposedly modernized military and an impressive tank fleet couldn't withstand the relentless onslaught of large and small drones, transforming many of those tanks into smoldering ruins. Despite their experience from the Armenia-Azerbaijani conflict, the Russian invaders were woefully unprepared for the drone warfare they faced. By the second half of 2023, Russia sought to dominate the drone warfare arena, making significant strides. But in early 2024, Ukraine reclaimed its lead, refusing to rest on its laurels. With their nation's survival at stake, Ukrainians pushed innovation to its limits in the drone race. One of their groundbreaking innovations? The easily concealable cardboard drone. Dismissed by some as a mere gimmick, this drone has proven lethal, downing Russian jets and redefining combat strategies. Curious about how a cardboard drone, nicknamed the Origami of Death, could wield such power? Let's explore its design, operational use, and its profound implications for the future of drone warfare. As a preview for what this Origami of Death can do, it might be best to look at the words of one of Russia's military bloggers, who was writing in August 2023, shortly after $100 million worth of aircraft went up in smoke to a Ukrainian drone attack. Tonight, Ukrainians use them in a swarm, mixing drones with warheads with empty drones. I don't know exactly what engines were on the drones, but if they were electric-powered, then they were not launched from Ukraine. But these drones were indeed launched from Ukraine. What model actually caused such damage? The drone in question is called the Corvo Precision Payload Delivery System (PPDS), manufactured by an Australian company called SnipeX Systems in cooperation with the Australian Army. Australia has been a steady supporter of Ukraine in its resistance against Russian aggression, delivering a total of $960 million worth of aid in the first 2 years of the war. This aid has involved counter-drone systems like the Slinger kinetic defense system, which is designed to detect and shoot down fast-moving small drones. But the Australians are helping Ukraine in offensive aspects of drone warfare as well. In July 2022, the Australian government launched an initiative to supply Ukraine with the PPDS drone. The initiative was part of a $1.1 million contract, and SnipeX has been exporting the PPDS to Ukraine since March 2023, when the drone was revealed at the Avalon Air Show. SnipeX is shipping the units to Ukraine at a rate of at least 100 per month. Supplying Ukraine with the PPDS is SnipeX's only focus for that market, which is an indication of its success there. The company sells these drones in pizza box-sized containers that can carry 24 at a time. When they arrive in Ukraine, PPDS drones are stacked and flat-packed, an arrangement which makes them easy and efficient to deliver. 24 of the drones can come in one package. They are then assembled using rubber bands. The drones come with personalized launchers. These are small catapults that propel the PPDS into the sky. If no launcher is available, someone can throw it into the air. The company is understandably secretive about the material the PPDS is made from, but it seems that the drone isn't actually made of common cardboard, but rather a wax-coated foam board. It's also easily repairable because damaged parts can be replaced. For example, if the drone's nose cone gets hit, the operators can replace it with a spare. The drone can also be repaired with common tools like a hot glue gun and tape, making them durable and easy to call upon in lean times. SnipeX says that the PPDS is designed for covert delivery, and perhaps more than any other drone on the market, the Origami of Death is well suited for such operations. It's designed to be stealthier than a normal drone. First, the PPDS has a size which helps to enhance its stealth profile. The central portion is about as big as a shoebox, while the wingspan is about 6.5 feet. More importantly, since the drone is made of a waxy cardboard-like substance, it's transparent to radar. The rise of stealth drones has been another innovation in UAV warfare since the conflict started. Toward the end of 2023, Russia began coloring some of its Shahid drones black to make them less visible to the eye. This coating was not just paint, but rather a specialized material to reduce visibility to radar. The Ukrainians and their Australian partners have taken this to another level with the PPDS. The drone is not completely stealthy because its electronic components like the battery can be detected. Nevertheless, it has a lower cross-section to radar thanks to its design and materials. The drone's operator controls the UAV through a specialized Android tablet that comes with the packaging. The PPDS can also fly autonomously if need be. It uses GPS guidance, but is resistant to jamming because in the event the GPS goes down, the PPDS has control software that can calculate its location using the information from the drone's speed and trajectory. According to SnipeX chief engineer Ross Osborne, the PPDS can also take weather conditions into account when deciding its flight path, landing pattern, and approach. The wax coating ensures that these drones can continue operating in damp conditions, maritime environments, and even rain, assuming it's not raining cats and dogs outside. When not attacking, the drone is designed to be reused. A single PPDS drone can be reused up to 60 times for reconnaissance and surveillance missions. The material the PPDS is made of also makes it more resistant to jamming than traditional drones. At a time when both sides of the war are recognizing the importance of jamming, the PPDS might prove more important in the next phase of the conflict and for the future of drone warfare as a whole. We'll discuss this more in detail later. For now, you might be wondering, why would someone come up with the idea for a so-called cardboard drone to begin with? Why was the PPDS conceived in the first place? The PPDS was originally designed for reconnaissance and to carry supplies to frontline positions. The drone weighs 5.3 pounds when empty and can carry a payload of 6.6 pounds. The payload bay has a cover that flips up to ensure the ease of retrieval by the receiver. It's propeller-driven and can reach speeds of 37 miles per hour. The PPDS has a reported range of 75 miles. However, as we'll soon see, there is good reason to think these drones can far exceed that distance, and this reveals the first clue about the need for a cardboard drone. The PPDS's design gives it a great advantage in range over the typical rotor-based small drones that Ukraine's pilots have long favored. This is because of its light weight and fixed-wing configuration. There's less drag, greater energy efficiency, and the wings generate the lift. The PPDS can fly at higher altitudes than rotor drones as well, which can add to its ability to surprise the enemy. The PPDS can land within 2 meters of its intended destination. For surveillance, the original PPDS drone came with a camera placed within the top of its nose, just above the propeller. Aside from covert delivery and surveillance, low cost is one of the things SnipeX prioritized with this drone, and the second major reason why it chose such an unusual base material. The unit price is not available on SnipeX's website but reportedly ranges from between $670 to $3,350. Some of Ukraine's FPV drones are cheaper than this, but what makes the PPDS interesting from an economic standpoint is that it's considered a military-grade drone, according to Michael Partridge, a representative from the company. Other higher-end military-grade drones like the Shahid cost in the range of tens of thousands of dollars or more. Other military-grade drones, like the American MQ-9 Reaper, cost $30 million. Thanks to its design and construction, the PPDS drone can deliver military uses for much cheaper prices. It won't be nearly as powerful as a Shahid or a Reaper, but the low price doesn't mean this drone is ineffective. The Ukrainians have since weaponized it and turned it into an effective kamikaze drone. They began using the PPDS to attack Russian targets in June 2023, only 3 months after their initial arrival. Payloads can be of various forms of explosives, including cluster-type munitions. One Ukrainian test captured on video saw an airburst above a target that rained fragments over a broader area. This munition makes it a particularly good anti-personnel weapon, but it certainly has many anti-material uses as well, a fact which was proven in late August 2023. One of the drone's more notable feats came on August 27th, when Ukraine used the PPDS against an airbase at the historically significant site of Kursk, deep within Russian territory. Ukrainian sources reported that the strike hit a MiG-29 fighter jet and 4 Su-30 aircraft. The drones also damaged 2 Pantsir missile launchers and part of an S-300 air defense system. The governor of the Kursk area, Roman Starovoy, claimed that an apartment block has also been damaged in the drone attack. Russian sources later confirmed that the drones that hit the Kursk airfield were designed like aircraft, which would suggest that they were indeed Ukraine's origami of death. Never content to rest on their laurels, Ukraine's drone pilots used the PPDS again on the 29th, striking another airbase in Pskov, 450 miles into Russian territory. 2 Russian cargo planes were destroyed in the attack and another 2 were damaged. The attack on Pskov was part of a broader drone wave attack between the 28th and 30th, which targeted 9 Russian regions, including Moscow. The PPDS might be the so-called cardboard drone and carry less of a payload than other military-grade drones, but it still forced the Russians to disperse their remaining aircraft off their runways in the aftermath of the attacks. Comically, images taken following these incidents showed the Russians resorting to putting stacks of tires on their aircraft to prevent them from taking damage from future drone strikes. Maybe the Russians think of them as an improvised, low-cost version of the cope cage. Less dramatically, the Ukrainians have used PPDS for its intended purpose of surveillance and resupply missions. It's an ideal system to deliver ammunition to hard-pressed troops on the front line, for example, where traditional methods could prove vulnerable to enemy fire. These drones are much harder to target and ideally suited for carrying small arms, magazines of ammunition, mortar rounds, medical supplies, communications equipment, spare parts, and other essentials for infantry squads that often get overlooked. Partridge mentioned that the PPDS is designed for a blood bag. By using the drones to deliver these lighter supplies to hard-pressed troops, Ukraine does not need to risk the destruction of more expensive and valuable military vehicles that cost a lot more money and can carry heavier equipment. The aforementioned attributes are not the final ones for the PPDS. SnipeX is improving the drone based on feedback from its Ukrainian operators. A high-profile Ukrainian delegation, including Kyiv's ambassador to Australia, made a visit to SnipeX in early 2023, shortly after the drones began arriving. The ambassador, Vasyl Maryshenko, was full of praise for the cardboard drone. "It looks like something that kids would play with, but when you see what it can do, it's really amazing. They've been very good at inflicting lots of damage on the enemy." The company itself suggests that the PPDS is still in development. Initial trials had to be halted thanks to the disruption brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. Initially, there was some interest in the PPDS among Middle Eastern countries, which wanted to use it as a cheap way of carrying weapons. However, the Ukrainians have obviously used it in far more complicated missions. The dialogue between the Ukrainian armed forces and SnipeX has provided significant feedback, and the company is using it to improve the mission planning system, user interface, and ground control station, not just for the PPDS, but the entire line of Corvo drones. Partridge spoke about this collaboration with Defense News. The Ukrainians are using it in certain ways. The most effective way we're hearing about is they're literally cutting holes in the bottom and putting GoPros on 10-second timers. They've got active imagery that's 30 minutes old for a very cost-effective way of doing that. For reconnaissance and resupply missions, the GoPro cameras take these 10-second clips at the moment the drone reaches the turnaround point pre-programmed into the GPS. The Ukrainians' innovation with the GoPro cameras has added another stealthy quality to the PPDS. The quick flight and turnaround with the footage at the appropriate spot ensures there is no data link streaming the footage back to a command post. There is also no link required to give the PPDS its flight instructions. Although the lack of these data links mean that footage will not be live, it's much better for operational security, and things will most likely remain the same within 30 minutes, especially since these drones are hard to detect through visual methods or through radar in the first place. Ukraine used these methods to get accurate information about Russian positions in preparation for retaking territory in Zaporizhia. Although Ukraine failed in this offensive campaign, it still pierced the first two of Russia's defensive lines and inflicted more casualties on Russian forces, despite the latter being on the defensive. Accurate information about Russian positions was likely critical in the limited success that it had, especially when it came to neutralizing Russian tanks and artillery positions. Accurate information about Russian movements has also proven important in defensive operations, as it's permitted Ukraine to inflict heavy casualties on enemy forces in their westward drives, assisting in the war of attrition. In September 2023, SnipeX released a new version of the PPDS with a longer wingspan and higher payload at 6 kilograms or 13.2 pounds. Although these new versions are easier for the eye to detect and likely to shoot down due to their larger size, the trade-off is that they can carry more supplies for troops on the front line or, more dramatically, more powerful explosives, all while being still made of the same cardboard-like material that reduces their visibility to radar and resistance to enemy jammers. The latter is an important point because Russia has begun to signal its intention of adapting its tanks to the new reality of drone warfare. Russia has lost thousands of tanks since the war started, and Ukraine's drones are one of the biggest reasons why. Russia understands the danger its armored units are in now though, which is why in early 2024, it began rolling out a new variant of its T-72 tank. Ukrainian soldiers identified this variant as the ZAR-EW, electronic warfare, because of the jammers it sported on its frame. These are designed to interfere with the signals of incoming drones and, in theory, should work much better than the cope cages. Ukrainian troops were understandably concerned when they began identifying these. Ukrainian soldiers then captured one of these units in April and laughably found that the jammers didn't work because they were assembled in a hasty slapdash fashion. The antennas might have been made in a factory, but the assembly left something to be desired. They were jumbled together with rope and placed hastily on wooden pallets. The result was that the ZAR-EW tank that made Ukraine's drone pilots so nervous was revealed as more of a gimmick than a genuine threat, not much better than a cope cage. For the moment, Russian tanks remain as vulnerable to drones as they have been. Russia's other units are also lacking when it comes to electronic drone countermeasures. Many of the jammers Russia needs to protect its infantry units on the line do not work. One popular jammer, a 2400 model promoted by the popular Two Majors Telegram channel, does not seem to be effective for several reasons. First, its antenna are pointed directly up, when most drones come in from the side, which means it loses most of its effectiveness. The jammer also has an inadequate cooling system, which consists of a single fan bolted to the interior of a plastic case. There is inadequate ventilation for the fan to draw in cooler air and expel hot air because of this design. The jammer is so hot that it can't be touched, and interior electronic components begin to melt, making it even less effective in countering enemy drones. So in protecting its tanks and infantry or artillery formations from Ukrainian UAVs, Russia is still lagging. Its electronic warfare systems are not up to the task. To make matters worse, there has been little communication between Russia's drone pilots and electronic warfare units, resulting in many of Russia's drones being downed by their own jammers. This was one of the reasons why Russia suffered so many casualties in the Battle of Avdiivka. However, Ukraine cannot count on such incompetence continuing forever. Russia has proven surprisingly resilient in learning from its mistakes and adapting on the battlefield. This was one of the major reasons why the Ukrainians' 2023 offensive failed to replicate the success of the year before. It's reasonable to assume that the Russians will improve on their electronic warfare measures if given enough time. This is where the PPDS comes in. The cardboard drone gives Ukraine more options to adapt in the face of improvements to Russia's electronic warfare capabilities. Future PPDS units being able to carry heavier payloads will also come in handy, since more powerful explosives will give Ukraine a better chance of destroying enemy tanks. Ukraine has also made it a priority to target Russian supply vehicles in the conflict to undermine enemy logistics. Using the PPDS in the face of improved jammers gives Ukraine another means of continuing with that mission. In December 2023, President Zelensky made the construction of at least 1 million small drones in 2024 one of his government's highest priorities. Ukraine was on track to surpass that total early. The PPDS might only make up a small portion of that goal, and its speed of 37 miles per hour might be lower than the other drones in Ukraine's arsenal. However, its stealth qualities, jamming resistance, and ease of assembly and replacement make it ideal for high-profile missions, like the attack on important bases in Russian territory, and the use of these newer drones might soon be coming to other parts of the world. According to SnipeX founder George Vecino, Ukraine's success in using the PPDS has prompted interest from other countries, including the United States. This raises an interesting question. As drones become more ubiquitous on the battlefield, there will naturally be efforts to make them less detectable to radar and harder to jam. The PPDS has both of these qualities thanks to its unusual materials. So is the PPDS a sign of things to come? Will future drones be made of alternative materials to make them miniature stealth aircraft, more difficult for radar to see and harder for steadily more sophisticated jammers to bring down? Ever thought of strapping a helicopter rocket launcher to the back of a Mitsubishi truck? Well, as you can see here, Ukrainian fighters have. There is no escape from Ukrainian weaponized civilian Mad Max vehicles. But if you see something like this Soviet-era Volga sedan mounted with a remote-controlled 14.5mm heavy machine gun rampaging your way, you should definitely at least give it a shot. And if you think these trucks are strange, wait till we show you what this 1940 SVT-40 Soviet semi-automatic battle rifle can do. Don't be fooled by its vintage look. This gun is far from being ready to be retired. The Russo-Ukraine war has definitely been producing some of the weirdest weapons we've seen fielded in recent history, maybe even ever. But how weird can it get? Join us as we dive into this rabbit hole and reveal the good, the bad, and the downright strange weapons seeing use in Ukraine, starting with oldies but goodies. It's a common misconception that the newest weapons are the best in modern warfare. Futuristic weapons sporting next-generation designs and big capability promises tend to attract the most public attention, but the war in Ukraine has proven that it's the workhorses, the time-tested OGs, that actually get the job done. In Russia and Ukraine's case, Soviet-era weapons have dominated the battlefield primarily by virtue of their sheer availability and ease of use. This doesn't mean they aren't good. Ukraine's Soviet-era defenses like the S-300 and Buk M1 here, for example, seem to have done an excellent job blunting Russian firepower. The AK-74 and all its variants, such as the AK-74M, are excellent infantry firearms. Ukraine's well-maintained and updated T-72 and T-64 tanks, designs now well over 50 years old, continue to hold their own against Russia's newer iterations, or at least what's left of them. When upgraded with modern electronics and munitions, Soviet-era weapons can more than hold their own in the 21st century. This was the case with the Soviet Kh-35 subsonic anti-ship missile that Ukraine overhauled into its R-360 Neptune and used it to sink this jewel of Russia's Black Sea fleet, the Moskva, back in April 2022. There are other examples of Soviet-era weapons being overhauled, upgraded, and flat-out MacGyvered into menacing new packages. Look no further than the trusty RPG-7, the famous Soviet shoulder-fired, muzzle-loaded rocket launcher that has seen service all over the world, for a prime example. RPGs were designed to penetrate tank armor. though their cheap, mass-produced warheads have been used against emplacements, buildings, helicopters, and human targets since the weapon's introduction in 1961. With plenty of cheap RPG rounds at their disposal, Ukraine has adapted certain warheads for more effective anti-personnel use. Video evidence from early in the conflict showed a fearless Ukrainian demolitions expert taking an angle grinder to a live 82mm mortar round, loosening the stabilizer fins with a couple of hatchet blows, and fitting an adapter manufactured by volunteers, all to fit the mortar onto an RPG booster. No mobile mortar system, no problem. All you have to do is strap a rocket booster to a mortar round, like this, and you get a man-portable anti-personnel munition that can be fired from a 15-pound tube. Ingenuity at its best. If this shoulder-fired RPG mortar hybrid didn't get the job done, why not just strap a bunch of anti-personnel grenades in a radial pattern around the anti-tank warhead itself? Well, that was exactly the line of thinking for some Ukrainian frontline units hoping to add a bit more juice to their anti-infantry RPG lineup. Images of makeshift explosives surfaced online revealing just that, an RPG warhead with a half-dozen grenades fastened to it, a Frankenstein creation tailor-made for omnidirectional destruction. If the humble RPG is any indication, there are classics in use that are still very functional. And then there are classic throwbacks that are real head-scratchers. With the 75th anniversary celebrations unfolding around the globe, many weapons that played starring roles in World War II have been making their greatest hits comeback in Ukraine. Here are some of the most notable sightings. The Mosin Nagant M1891-30 and its successor, the SVT-40. Back in the heady days of 1891, well over 100 years ago, Captain Sergei Mosin chambered a 7.62 by 54mm R cartridge into his finalized bolt-action assembly after a decade of experimentation and pulled the trigger of a firearm that would ultimately become one of the most mass-produced military bolt-action rifles in history. 37 million Mosin rifles were built over the next 8 decades, as the rifle saw service in 42 separate conflicts, a remarkable testament to its durability, reliability, and versatility. As you might have guessed, the Russo-Ukrainian War is the latest conflict to feature the time-worn Mosin. Updated in 1930, long and carbine versions of the M1891-30 model, the self-same workhorse that helped deliver the Allied victory in the East during World War II, has been seen in service today with Ukrainian and Russian forces alike. Dating back to 2014, Ukrainian separatists in the Donbass regularly utilized the Mosin in sniper roles. Some were doled out to Russian conscripts from deep Soviet stocks after Putin's military mobilization last year. Several of the Mosin's eventual successors, the semi-automatic SVT-40, SKS, and the infamous AK-47, have also been seen in use. But this is just the beginning. The water-cooled M1910 Maxim machine gun. One of the strangest sightings in Ukraine actually predates the antiquated Mosin, if you can believe that. Somewhere, someplace, American inventor Hiram Maxim must have been looking on with an amused smile on his face when the armed forces of Ukraine wheeled his revolutionary M1910 Maxim machine gun out of storage. Yes, that Maxim gun, the world's first reliable, effective, mass-produced machine gun, and started using them back in the mid-2010s against the Russians in the Donbass. The Maxim was invented in 1884 and remained in production until 1945, widely adopted around the globe by imperial powers hell-bent on killing each other in 2 world wars and a host of other conflicts. The Soviets adopted it in 1930, and as the Soviet surplus often did after the fall of the Berlin Wall, 35,000 Maxims found their way into Ukrainian storage. Many of them were dusted off, mounted onto vehicles, placed at checkpoints and fortifications, and used in other ways to repel the Russian invaders. Sporting protective armor plates and 2 heavy wheels to add mobility and stability, the Maxim uses the same 7.62 by 54mm ammunition as many other Soviet machine guns. Capable of firing 600 rounds a minute up to 3,000 meters away, the heavy Maxim is certainly not the best machine gun option on the battlefield, but this great war-killing machine is still showing its effectiveness 131 years later. Old Man Maxim would be proud. Other vestiges of the past have surfaced too. Back in 1947, the Soviet Union produced its last PPSH-41, a workhorse submachine gun used by the millions during World War II. With its recognizable drum magazine and high rate of fire, the open-bolt burp gun fired 7.62 by 25mm pistol rounds and saw use after World War II in Korea and Vietnam. Certain photos showed PPSH-41s and the PPS-43, its stamped steel brother, in the hands of certain Ukrainian DNR separatist fighters and internal police units in the war's first few months, perhaps more a sign of desperation than utility. It wasn't the only World War II-era machine gun to feature, though. The unmistakable DPM, DP-27 and 28, the mainstay Red Army light machine gun by 1945, have also been seen with their traditional pan, circular top-loaded machine gun chambered for the 7.62 by 54mm R cartridge. The DPM was eventually replaced by the more robust PK series of light machine guns that are seen around the world. But lead is lead, and clearly the dusty DPM can still hold its own from time to time. We're not sure how many of these are actually in use, but they are certainly there. Speaking of chunky, relatively unwieldy Soviet-designed firearms that refuse to die, Ukrainian soldiers have been seen firing 80-plus-year-old PTRS-41 and PTRD-41 anti-tank rifles from covert positions. These bulky metal rifles were designed from 1938 to 1939 and produced throughout World War II as a stopgap to help Soviet infantrymen stand a chance against German lightly armored vehicles. The gun was essentially an SKS on steroids. For such a relatively cheap weapon, the weapon's 14.5 by 114mm armor-piercing cartridges certainly did the job, penetrating armor plates up to 40mm thick from 100 meters away. Reportedly used off and on by militiamen in the Donbass firing World War II vintage ammunition since 2014, they are still seen on social media from time to time. There are a few honorable mentions on our list. Firearms spotted on the battlefield as old as the ones we've already spoken about, but whose actual use can't be confirmed. These include several Nazi weapons including the MP-40 and STG-44 submachine gun, as well as the MG-42, the lead-spitting beast whose modern variant, the MG-3, remains in use in more than 40 countries. Ironically, while certain Ukrainian units used a Nazi-designed machine gun to repel Russian soldiers, early photos from the war showed American-built Lend-Lease Thompson submachine guns taken from captured Russian prisoners. It's impossible to know if this was a one-off sighting, but its presence makes odd sense, considering the United States shipped millions of Tommy guns to the Soviets, then fighting the Nazis back during World War II. Adding more American flavor to the hodgepodge of vintage firearms in Ukraine, if Russian state media is to be believed, the Ukrainians have been using US-made M101 towed howitzers firing 105mm shells on front lines near Zaporizhzhia, an artillery piece fielded by the US Army during World War II. These M101s were allegedly donated by Lithuania back in September 2022. What about imported flavors? 32 nations from tiny North Macedonia to Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, and Sweden have all pledged varying amounts of military aid to Ukraine since the start of the war. Some countries, like the United States, can offer tens of billions of dollars worth of expensive vehicles, drones, munitions, and equipment. Others, like Portugal, donate grenades, small arms ammunition, some automatic rifles, and firefighting helicopters. That Ukraine has taken this jumbled admixture of arms and equipment and made it work speaks to their pluck and resourcefulness, traits the Western world has come to admire. In this deluge of aid, a long list of modern small arms have flowed into the country. Ukraine is unique in the annals of military history in that respect, an independent country whose rapidly revitalized military operates with such a vast range of amalgamated systems and platforms. Across the front lines, soldiers are now fighting with M4 carbines, M240s, M32 grenade launchers, and M2 Brownings, alongside smaller numbers of submachine guns donated by private American companies. Desert Tech sent its Bullpup SRS-A1 anti-material rifle, an insanely accurate rifle that fires the powerful .338 Lapua Magnum round, while Keltec sent 400 sub-2009mm machine guns to make up for a civilian contract they'd lost track of. There's even been a sighting of a suppressed American Barrett 50 caliber sniper rifle. To this list, the Ukrainians employ many foreign imports. Czech firearms like the CZ-805 Bren and the ZVI Falcon Op-99 anti-material rifle, British Starstreak laser-guided high-velocity air defense systems, futuristic-looking Belgian FN-2000s, German MP5s, and licensed versions of Israeli small arms like the Tavor and Negev manufactured by Fort, a Ukrainian firm based out of Vinnytsia. We've also seen next-generation variants of time-tested designs surface, like the Bullpup ASH 12.7 and the Russian-made assault rifle or the AK-12, a fifth-generation Kalashnikov assault rifle introduced in just 2018. Unlike the AK-74, the AK-12 is chambered in the 5.45 by 39mm round, with the Russian variant capable of firing the 7.62, known as the AK-15. With its free-floating barrel, cheaper cost per unit, and stronger construction, the AK-12 features improved accuracy and resilience. Okay, let's get to the juicy stuff. The ripest field for weird weapons during the Ukraine war hasn't really been in a field at all. It's been in the air, where unmanned drones and cruise missiles rule the skies and deliver pinpoint destruction at the push of a joystick. Recently, a Russian Blackjack strategic bomber fired a Kh-55 cruise missile stripped of its nuclear warhead at Ukraine. Yes, you heard that right. They fired a nuclear-capable cruise missile, albeit an older one designed in the 1980s, with weighted ballast in place of its nuclear warhead. But why? The Kh-55 cruise missile was first designed in the mid-1970s. Fired from the belly of a Tupolev Tu-160 Blackjack supersonic bomber, the turbofan 200-kiloton yield cruise missiles were the spear of Russia's nuclear deterrent for decades. It may seem strange, but firing an inert nuclear cruise missile makes some sense. Increasingly, as Ukrainian air defenses improve, Russia has seen less success bombarding civilian infrastructure. Cruise missiles are expensive, and Russia seems to be running out. Using older air-launched Kh-55 missiles plucked out of storage might be Russia's way of trying to overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses without wasting money on expensive missiles that get intercepted or miss their mark. Russia has tried to overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses in other ways too. Back in March 2022, Ukraine released photos of a partially destroyed mystery munition, resembling a dart released from an Iskander-M short-range ballistic missile. The strange devices were each a foot long, painted with an orange tail, and contained a heat source but no explosive warhead. The findings were puzzling. Experts believe the darts to be bomblets on part of some sort of cluster munition package. Later, they revised their thesis, arguing these dart-like munitions were some sort of penetration aid, a Cold War-era device used as a countermeasure to help primary ballistic missiles reach their target. The darts worked as decoys, like the Kh-55 cruise missile mentioned earlier. Loaded up with electronic jammers and heat sources, they can attract missiles, fool radars, and foil infrared seekers. Jeffrey Lewis, professor at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies in Monterey, California, claimed it was a very curious decision by the Russians to use decoy missiles, considering that at that stage Ukraine still lacked the military capabilities to successfully shoot down Iskander missiles. These penetration aids were highly classified for decades, making their subsequent discovery an intelligence bonanza for the West. Another mysterious impact crater, this one far from Ukraine in the Croatian capital of Zagreb, made the world wonder what on earth the Russian military was up to 1 month into its invasion. On March 10, 2022, an unmanned aerial vehicle overflew Romanian, Hungarian, and Croatian airspace, flying 430 miles per hour at 4,300 feet before careering into a Croatian school campus and crashing into soft ground. The local residents were fortunate. The drone landed just 160 feet from a highly populated student dormitory. Incredibly, nobody was hurt. Initial theories claimed it had been a Ukrainian army recon drone. Inspections of the surviving wreckage painted a different picture. The presence of Cyrillic markings and a Soviet Red Star insignia prompted an American analyst to identify the aircraft as a Russian Tupolev Tu-141 drone, an unmanned aircraft used since the 1970s. Subsequent investigations revealed that the drone was indeed carrying a warhead. Nobody ever found out whether it had been a Russian drone or was in fact an off-course Ukrainian drone that ran out of fuel. Either way, the crash sparked an international incident, with residents and politicians from several NATO countries wondering how such a drone could so effortlessly penetrate their airspace. But the drone story doesn't end there. Russia has employed plenty of drones to observe and attack Ukrainian civilian and military targets. One of the most unique iterations has been the Zala KUB-BLA kamikaze drone, a short-range loitering munition manufactured by a subsidiary of the Kalashnikov company. The KUB-BLA, measured with a wingspan of 1.2 meters, can carry a 3-kilogram payload and travel 130 kilometers per hour. It has a maximum range of 40 kilometers and a flight time of 30 minutes, so it can't be employed far beyond Russian positions, but it can make use of AI technologies on approach, making adjustments and identifying its static target. Several KUB-BLA drones were intercepted over Kyiv in the early days of the invasion, sparking theories that they were being used to target Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and decapitate the Ukrainian government. Some of the most interesting drone footage captured during the war, however, doesn't come from military drones at all. It comes from the cheap, commercially produced drones that the Ukrainians have jerry-rigged for all manner of missions. Using 3D printers, a soldering iron, cheap hardware, and some plain old-fashioned ingenuity, Ukraine's army of commercial drones have now been retrofitted for offensive service, and to great effect. It took lots of experimentation and refinement to engineer a light enough grenade to knock out enemy armor using nothing but altitude and gravity. Very quickly, Ukrainians succeeded in engineering lightweight munitions that did not affect a drone's flight path whatsoever. A real engineering masterclass. War is economy. It's money. One Ukrainian soldier commented on the rationale for making everyday drones more lethal. If you have a drone for $3,000 and a grenade for $200, and you destroy a tank that costs $3 million, that's very interesting. Interesting indeed. Makeshift air-delivered care packages have gone on to achieve global renown, both the deadly and the benign. Viral videos show deft Ukrainian drone operators conducting the wartime equivalent of a basketball trick shot, landing grenades in open tank hatches, underground air pipes, narrow trenches, and populated foxholes from hundreds of feet in the air. In other settings, drone modifications have been shown being used to transport small packages of sugar to frontline soldiers, and even most recently, to steal an enemy radio set from a dead Russian soldier that was subsequently used to listen in on enemy plans for several days. The Ukrainians have thanked their Russian enemy for their default Lend-Lease program. Abandoned and salvaged equipment, most of it virtually interchangeable with what they already carry into battle, provides an ongoing boon to Ukrainian military effectiveness. But not all strange and unique weapons are captured intact. While the Ukrainians will make use of the captured firearms and other weapons for a long time to come, vehicle debris recovered after a skirmish almost a year ago revealed a destroyed Russian prototype tank many believed to be one of a kind. Video footage from a March 17, 2022 clash showed the burnt-out remains of a completely unique tank, a T-80 UM2 Black Eagle. This particular Black Eagle was in bad shape. Like so many before and after it, its autoloader had taken a direct hit, which promptly exploded and blew its turret clean off. It was an interesting find. The T-80 UM2 was once part of a next-generation tank development project, codenamed Object 640, or Black Eagle. The first iteration of the main battle tank appeared in 1997. At the time, Russia touted the experimental, modified T-80U as something that would easily hold its own against Western main battle tanks like the M1A2 Abrams. It boasted Cactus Explosive Reactive Armor (ERA) panels on its front hull and track skirts, a welded steel turret, anti-fragmentation screens around the main gun, and eventually, DROSD-2 Active Protection System, a radar-operated anti-rocket and missile fragmentation defense net that can disable incoming munitions 20 to 30 feet from the tank. Unfortunately and predictably for Russia, the project never got off the ground. The T-80 UM2 never entered production, and the prototype became a trial platform for new systems until, in early 2022, it was lumped into a Russian military column, ambushed north of Kyiv, and utterly destroyed. Perhaps Russia was keen to test out its capabilities on the modern battlefield. At any rate, one of the only tanks deployed to Russia so far to feature an anti-protection system didn't fare well. Remember that saying, desperate times call for desperate measures? Having now lost over 1,600 confirmed tanks in battle, 536 of them captured outright by Ukraine, Russia's real strategy has been to scrape the bottom of the barrel for dilapidated and poorly maintained Soviet-era surplus in its stocks, hastily modernize them and ship them off into the meat grinder for use by ill-trained conscripts and mercenaries. Recent images on social media, for example, show several BRDM-2MS 4x4 armored reconnaissance vehicles being overhauled at Russia's 103rd Armored Repair Plant near Chita in Siberia. However, the BRDM-2MS isn't much to write home about. It's an updated version of the BRDM-2, a Soviet amphibious lightly armored vehicle introduced into service back in 1966. Fitted with a coaxial 7.62 machine gun and a one-man turret with a 14.5mm KP-VT machine gun, mechanics were shown outfitting the paint-chipped vehicle with new thermal sights and, hopefully, a new coat of paint. Which again begs the question, why? Given the rate of vehicular destruction in Ukraine, operating the four-man BRDM-2MS will be like riding a tin box into battle against the likes of the modern AT-4, Javelin, or NLAW. Yes, it's nice to have wheels when you're an infantryman, but all the time and energy spent modernizing, or perhaps more accurately, restoring a vehicle that will barely stand up to Ukrainian artillery, mines, and tanks, much less the far cheaper Western anti-tank missiles commonly employed across the front, just seems counterproductive, like Putin's entire war. Yes, it may just be for show. Perhaps it may even excel in a behind-the-lines transport role. Nobody knows just how many BRDMs will see combat. But if they are deployed to the front, one Twitter user observed that Russia's upgrades are tantamount to having an 82 Honda and slapping a backup camera to it. They certainly won't protect their occupants. We do know that the same repair plant has modernized oodles of Cold War antique T-62s of all types, the same ones seen on railway cars headed to the front at various stages of the war thus far. Most of these museums on tracks, culled from deep storage, have not seen combat in decades, if at all, and their maintenance records reflect that fact. Most are being fitted with new engines, thermal imaging, bulkier armor, new comms, and better optics. The mere presence of the T-62 in Ukraine, 20,000 of which were being mass-produced during the Cold War from 1961 to 1973, shows how depleted Putin's starting lineup of T-80 and T-72 tanks has become. Attrition has forced him deep into his reserves. The number of T-72s in storage are reported to be far lower than anticipated, many of them mothballed and unsalvageable. T-62s are often used by reserve units in the east and thus kept in better condition. But if they get deployed to the front, no amount of cope cages welded onto the T-62 chassis will be able to protect these relics from destruction. Think of what would happen if all of a sudden the United States Armed Forces started wheeling M60s out of storage and slapping modern equipment onto them. Sure, it could do something, the same way a T-62 can. If deployed to fortify an occupied town or doled out as a training implement, it could provide some utility. But as David Axe, a Forbes defense writer, said it, there's no evidence the T-62s played any meaningful role in the fighting. There's ample evidence their four-man crews abandoned the tanks at first opportunity. The Cheetah plant has allegedly been tasked with refurbishing 800 T-62s by 2025. As you may have noticed, this list of the strangest, weirdest weapons in Ukraine isn't exactly short, and it's hardly exhaustive. Ukrainian soldiers have reportedly captured one Russian prisoner armed with a Chinese-made single-shot pellet rifle. There is also that iconic image of a Russian Rosgvardia member guarding a checkpoint in Kherson with an antique 12-pound Napoleonic-era cannon. It could all be a joke, a stunt for social media, or a decoy to fool the Ukrainians. Either way, it's surreal that so many historic and head-scratching pieces have made their way onto the battlefields of Ukraine.
Ukrainian sharpshooters have proven very effective in their fight against Russian invaders. It helps that they have the biggest sniper rifle in the world in their hands, one which has some of the longest kills on record and which can penetrate most types of armor at long ranges for cheap prices. What is this rifle? How have Ukrainian forces used it? And what does it say about the future of the sniper? Let's take a look. Warfare has changed dramatically through the past 3 centuries. What was once an activity that relied on mass fire to compensate for the inaccuracy of early small arms and artillery has gradually become more precision-based as weapons become more accurate over longer distances. The rise of the sniper in the late 18th century, thanks to the advent of cheaper rifled barrels, is one of the best early examples of precision targeting in warfare. Demand for snipers has been high in conflicts ever since the American Revolutionary War, where they helped to turn the tide of critical battles like Saratoga in 1777. Snipers first proved their effectiveness on the battlefield against individual enemies, especially officers, which were easy to target because of the ornate uniforms that they wore. The increased range and accuracy of small arms forced officers to wear plainer clothing by the end of the 19th century. After proving themselves in the anti-personnel role, snipers began to use even larger firearms loaded with special-purpose heavy machine gun rounds to target enemy vehicles like supply trucks or even tanks. Although tank armor became too strong for these weapons to damage in World War II, anti-material rifles are still effective against a wide variety of other targets. Thanks to the advent of these rifles, the sniper became a threat not only to men on foot but even to those who were riding inside vehicles like armored personnel carriers. The sniper's effectiveness as a force multiplier continued to increase, although sharpshooters still often lacked weapons that could serve all of their needs. Early snipers tended to be hunters who were singled out for their roles thanks to their experience. This is why most sniper rifles, even into the 1970s, were adapted from hunting rifles. But such a dynamic limited the development in the kind of ammunition they could use. Things started to change in the 1980s. One of these changes was the further evolution of the sniper's increasing anti-material purpose. This was the time when the famous American .50 caliber Barrett sniper rifle was invented by a Tennessee man named Ronnie Barrett. The use of the Browning machine gun round for this weapon gave the sniper much longer reach and power, increasing the diversity of targets that could be destroyed. Dedicated sharpshooters used to targeting enemy infantry would also have a go-to weapon that could be used to target vehicles. Recruitment and training methods for snipers also started changing at this time. Typical sniper training in modern armies can take a year or more, and Ukraine was once no exception to this. However, because they are so badly needed at the front, Ukraine's sniper schools have given candidates a crash course that can be completed in a few weeks. The war in Ukraine has proven that in this age of precision artillery and drone surveillance, snipers need weapons that are accurate over increasingly long ranges to be effective and to ensure their survival. Fortunately for Ukraine, one of the weapons it has in its arsenal is the SnipeX Alligator, and it's the longest sniper rifle in the world, with a length of 6 feet 6 inches when it's fully assembled. Experts have described this weapon as one which makes even previous anti-material rifles like the M107 Barrett seem like pea shooters in comparison. What are the specs of this weapon? Let's take a deep dive. The SnipeX Alligator is a domestically produced rifle that made its debut in June 2020. The rifle is manufactured by a company called Zado, which was founded in 1991 in Kharkiv, Ukraine. The company has since expanded internationally with headquarters in Germany and the Netherlands. It's a nanotechnology-based chemical company that specializes in ceramics, lubricants, oil, and fuel additives, not to mention firearms. Zado is an experienced manufacturer that has over 1,600 items in its company product line. 2 of them are the anti-material Alligator and T-Rex rifles. The Alligator has a barrel length of 47 inches, which is more than twice the length of a typical hunting rifle designed to engage targets at long distances. Even the Barrett M107's barrel is small by comparison at 27 inches. The rifle has a mass of 25 kilograms, weighs 55 pounds, and is chambered for the 14.5 by 114mm anti-material round. This round, which has a mass between 59 and 66 grams and a weight of about 2.2 ounces, originated in the Soviet Union during World War II. There it was used as the ammunition for the KPV heavy machine gun and in anti-tank rifles like the PTRS-41 and the PTRD-41, weapons which have seen some use in the Ukrainian conflict today. Since World War II, this round has been used internationally in other anti-material rifles, anti-aircraft guns, and in the machine guns mounted on armored personnel carriers. The 14.5 by 114mm round comes in several different varieties, such as tracers, armor-piercing incendiary, and high-explosive incendiary. The Alligator's effective range is 2 kilometers, but it has a maximum range of 7 kilometers. To make it more accurate, Zado designed it as a bolt-action rifle. This reduces the tilt of the battle, which would be significant for a round of this size if it was firing in semi-automatic mode. The Alligator's receiver is made of steel and its bolt guides are chrome-plated, which reduces the amount of dirt and grime built up in the barrel as a result of repeat firing. The rifle comes with a detachable box magazine that can hold 5 rounds inside. The muzzle velocity is almost 1,000 meters per second, nearly Mach 3. A trained shooter can fire 12 rounds per minute. The Alligator can be used to attack dynamic as well as static targets. The Alligator has a design that compensates for the large recoil of its round in several ways. First, its sheer weight absorbs much of the energy and keeps the weapon steady, preventing the operator from feeling its full effect. Second, it comes with a recoil-isolating buttstock and a 4 or 5 baffle muzzle brake. Third, the shoulder stock is padded to reduce the wear and tear on the operator, although experts believe that this measure is likely ineffective in reducing recoil itself. The rifle has a height-adjustable cheek rest that can be installed on either the right or left side. It also comes with a carrying handle that can be changed depending on if the operator carries it with a mounted silencer. To facilitate the transport of this weapon at longer ranges, the Alligator's barrel can be detached quickly from the main body. The rifle and barrel can be then stored alongside one another in a compact transport case. To increase its accuracy, the Alligator can come equipped with different sighting devices and features a floating barrel that whips naturally under recoil. A folding 4-position adjustable bipod and rear-adjustable monopod come with the rifle too, in order to further stabilize it when it shoots. The Alligator also has a little brother, the SnipeX T-Rex rifle, which is essentially the same device, but this one is in a bullpup configuration without the detachable magazine, meaning it can hold only 1 round at a time. Both the Alligator and T-Rex rifles are coated with a special paint called Cerakote. Although it might sound trivial, this is an important attribute in their durability. Cerakote is a ceramic paint coating that provides enhanced protection against the elements. Firearms coated with Cerakote show fewer signs of wear and tear by becoming more resistant against corrosion and abrasion. Cerakote also provides better protection for the weapon when it's exposed to potentially degrading chemicals, meaning that it can be fielded for longer and under tougher conditions before requiring repair and replacement. Prior to the advent of Cerakote, the preferred way to keep firearms protected from corrosive materials and the elements was through stainless and blued steel finishes. While this helped in many ways, the material did not hold up well in watery conditions, which are common in a frontline deployment. To protect these weapons against water, water-repellent oil was traditionally required. Cerakote solves the same problems that stainless and blued steel finishes did, while also being protective against water. Cerakote coating can be finished in different colors, enhancing the concealability of the rifle, a crucial factor for the success of any sniper. Cerakote coating cannot be done on its own, however. It requires a trained gunsmith to apply it. Ukraine's gunsmiths are therefore likely coating the Alligator with Cerakote as the mission requires for the troops using it. In January 2021, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense announced that it would adopt the Alligator into service based on satisfactory test results. It claimed that the Alligator showed the ability to accomplish missions that current sniper rifles would not be able to do, all while managing recoil to an acceptable level. The rifles began to be introduced into use in March of that year. The arrival came just in time to be deployed in significant numbers to counter the Russian invasion that came a year later. Reports have circulated that British Special Operations soldiers have been training Ukrainian snipers in how to use the new sniper rifle. It remains to be seen if this means that the British Ministry of Defense is considering adoption of the weapon for the United Kingdom's armed forces. So far, no foreign nation has introduced the Alligator or the T-Rex into official service. It's not known how many of these rifles have been deployed in Ukraine, but it's likely that Ukrainian Special Operations forces have made use of it in significant numbers in missions against high-priority targets. There are also likely sharpshooters armed with it in the regular infantry divisions on the front lines. Perhaps as a testament to its ability to absorb recoil, some of the women serving as snipers in the Ukrainian armed forces have been seen using the Alligator. One of the more famous images of this weapon is with an unidentified woman holding two of the rifles upright, revealing how much taller they are than her. The barrel, especially with a silencer attached to it, is so long that it even looks to be at least a head taller than most of the men who have taken pictures with it in the upright position. The Alligator has made its mark on the battlefields of Ukraine in a few notable instances. The weapon reportedly saw its first significant use in the Battle of Mariupol between February and May 2022. There, the controversial Azov Brigade, which has been linked to neo-Nazi ideology and which Putin has used as an item in his propaganda justifying the war, was reportedly using the Alligator to deadly effect against Russian forces before the battle ended in the city's steel plant. In November 2023, a Ukrainian soldier named Vyacheslav Kowalski set a new record for the longest confirmed sniper kill while using the Alligator. He took out a Russian soldier at a distance of 3.8 kilometers, 2.5 miles. This kill easily broke the previous record, which came at the hands of a Canadian Special Forces sniper in Iraq in 2017 with a range of 3.5 kilometers. That was not the only notable feat of an Alligator in the hands of a Ukrainian sniper. Unfortunately, not much else is known about this incident. A year earlier, another Ukrainian sniper whose name is not known used his Alligator to kill two targets at a range of 2.7 kilometers, 1.8 miles. It was reported as the second most distant confirmed sniper kill at the time, behind the Canadian sniper shot. This incident is better known because there's a video of it. The Ukrainian military's Strategic Communications Office uploaded this video to Telegram on November 13, 2022. In the video, a Russian soldier is seen walking through a tree line with a sniper following him through the site with night vision equipped. According to Popular Mechanics, the sight was likely at 20 times magnification. Once the Russian soldier stopped walking, the sniper fired once. About 3 seconds later, the target fell. Another Russian soldier who ran in to aid his fallen comrade was then targeted and shot. The time for the bullet to arrive to the targets, when measured against the weapon's known muzzle velocity, likely makes the video and the shot an authentic display of the Ukrainian sniper's prowess, and not an item of propaganda as other sources were claiming. Despite these spectacular anti-personnel feats, the Alligator sniper rifle was designed primarily to serve in an anti-material role, rather than targeting individual enemy infantry. The long range at which this rifle is designed to engage its targets ensures that specific enemy personnel will be comparatively difficult for operators to reach, although the rifle can disrupt movement and formations of infantry by providing harassing fire from several kilometers away. The Alligator can also be used to destroy some obstacles impeding the movement of friendly infantry, such as wooden constructions or concrete walls. The Alligator is best suited to destroying light vehicles, fortified positions like dugouts, communications equipment, radar stations, ammunition and fuel deposits, air defense systems, and aircraft on a runway or in a hangar. These targets are much larger and easier to shoot from a long distance. There are even reports that the rifle is accurate enough at long ranges to target helicopters in flight, although there are no confirmed instances of such an engagement. The material targets the Alligator is designed to destroy are expensive. Anti-material rifles like the Alligator and its smaller cousin the T-Rex therefore assist Ukraine in waging asymmetric warfare against its larger and more deep-pocketed attacker. The rifle's round can hit its target with 23,380 pounds, about 12 tons, of force, over twice as much as that which would come from a .50 caliber Browning machine gun round. This is far more than enough force to destroy a cinderblock wall. Any enemy soldier getting hit by such a round would be turned into mincemeat. According to SnipeX, the rifle can penetrate 10mm steel armor at a range of 1.5 kilometers. That's enough force to punch through the side armor of Russian armored personnel carriers like the BTR-80, putting all of the troops inside in danger. According to the Oryx blog, Russia has lost 1,196 armored fighting vehicles as of February 19, 2024. 802 of them have been destroyed. It's also lost 3,435 infantry fighting vehicles and 397 armored personnel carriers. These estimates are likely understatements because Oryx only counts visually confirmed losses. It's not known how many of these losses came at the hands of Ukrainian snipers using the Alligator, but Ukraine's defenders, having access to a powerful and cheap anti-material weapon, is certainly responsible for part of the destruction that Russia has faced. More lightly armored targets, like supply trucks, are easy prey to the Alligator's round. Ukrainian snipers armed with it have undoubtedly used it to disrupt the columns supplying Russian forces, increasing the logistical difficulties that the Kremlin's armies have suffered during the war. A video released on September 29, 2022, demonstrates the Alligator's anti-material function. The video showed a Ukrainian sniper using it to engage an armored target from a distance of over 2 kilometers. The target in the grainy video was identified as a Russian tank. The sniper landed at least one shot on the vehicle, with the video cutting shortly afterward. Although the vehicle was not destroyed or showed any signs of significant damage, it demonstrated the range at which a trained Alligator operator could fire with effect, and the grave danger that it poses to more lightly armored Russian vehicles. The danger increases the closer the sniper gets. At 100 meters, the Alligator's round can penetrate 30mm of steel armor, putting heavier units at risk, although this would also put the sniper in far greater danger. Escaping after a shot while carrying such a long and heavy load will not be easy. For this reason, most sniping missions with the Alligator will come at longer ranges. Part of the reason for the importance of the Alligator's anti-material function is that it's a much cheaper option to destroy these targets than other portable anti-armor weapons. For example, a Javelin missile can cost $80,000 apiece. The launcher itself runs into 6 figures. These pieces of equipment also require a sophisticated supply chain in order to manufacture and transport, which means their numbers will necessarily be limited. In contrast, the Alligator will cost 4 or 5 figures. The rifle's precise price tag is not listed. There are also millions of 14.5 by 110mm rounds available to use, and it's easy to manufacture more of them locally. The presence of the Alligator allows for Ukrainian forces to avoid using expensive Javelin or NLAW rounds on lower priority targets, saving them as they were intended to be used against enemy main battle tanks. This is another way that the Alligator's presence assists Ukraine's asymmetric fight against Russia. As good as it is, the Alligator comes with dangers to the operator. We've mentioned its length and weight potentially making escape difficult, and that's not the only thing a sniper using it needs to worry about. Although it can carry a silencer to reduce its profile, the muzzle flash created when firing a round is huge. One commentator compared its brightness to that of a hand grenade going off. Even with a flash suppressor, it's an easy profile to make out, so the sniper will be vulnerable after having taken the shot. This is why the rifle is designed to engage targets at such long ranges. Such distance is one of the only ways to ensure a good level of safety for the sniper using it. Although it is notable that in a 2021 training video released by the Ukrainian military, the flash profile of the weapon was much lower when it was equipped with a silencer. The arrival of the Alligator and T-Rex on the battlefield shows that the role of the sniper continues to evolve. Ranges are getting longer, with the record for the longest recorded sniper kill changing hands more frequently in the last decade. Anti-material snipers have also shown their importance in modern peer or near-peer conflicts. precision missiles, artillery shells, and rocket-based anti-tank or anti-aircraft munitions get depleted rapidly under such conditions, with both sides in the conflict suffering from a shortage. Users will therefore need to be careful in how they decide to use their sophisticated precision ammunition. The response to this reality has been to go retro. In many other ways, old is new. For example, Ukrainian forces have relied on old-style flak cannons to shoot down Iranian Shahed drones, because using sophisticated missiles to do so is an uneconomical use of resources. The Alligator demonstrates the same principle against targets on the ground. The sniper will always be a danger to enemy personnel, especially against high-value targets who aren't being careful. However, it is in the anti-material role that snipers of the later 21st century might see their most effective use. Will the snipers of the future, armed with weapons like the Alligator, prove to be a danger to increasingly more expensive pieces of enemy equipment for cheaper prices?
November 2023, a Ukrainian soldier is in position to take a sniper shot that will change the world. He's armed with a new rifle named Horizon's Lord, and he's almost 2.5 miles away from his target. The sniper adjusts the rifle's calibration and lines up the shot. He pulls the trigger. In less than 10 seconds, his bullet speeds toward the target, hitting dead center and racking a confirmed kill. The Ukrainian soldier has just broken the world record for the longest ever successful sniper shot by a considerable distance, and it's all thanks to the rifle he holds in his hands. So what makes Horizon's Lord so special, and why could this rifle help Ukraine terrorize Russian President Vladimir Putin's army on the battlefields of Ukraine? Let's find out. We'll start by taking a closer look at the rifle itself. On the surface, there's little to distinguish the Horizon's Lord from any other sniper rifle. It's made by the Ukrainian company Mayak and is described as a custom sniper rifle that can be configured to fire rounds of several different calibers. That alone makes it interesting. The variance in calibers allows the rifle to be used both as a sniper weapon system and an anti-material rifle. In other words, the rifle is capable of carrying armor-piercing and incendiary rounds as its standard rounds that are used on a human target. But beyond that, the rifle doesn't look particularly special from the outside looking in. According to Mayak, it's between 59.84 and 71.65 inches long, depending on whether the butt is folded in or not, and can be configured with one of two barrel lengths. The 41.33-inch barrel is ideal for various rounds, including a special round we'll dig into later, though the sniper will need to switch to the 47.24-inch barrel if they want to fire 14.5 by 114 rounds. The rifle's weight is also variable, coming in at 15.5 kilograms when loaded with a single bullet, and rising to 17 kilograms if the sniper loads a full magazine. It can also fire surprisingly quickly for a sniper rifle. A talented sniper can rattle off up to 8 rounds per minute, though it's unlikely most would use that capability unless firing on targets for which absolute pinpoint precision isn't a priority. That may seem strange to say in the context of standard sniper rifles until you remember that the Horizon's Lord was made to be as effective as an anti-material weapon as it is a rifle to take out human targets. According to its manufacturers, the rifle can destroy anti-tank missile systems and large-caliber machine guns, as well as be used to damage lightly armored military vehicles, all larger targets that allow the sniper to benefit from the rapid firing rate. But it's the effective range that really sets the rifle apart. Mayak claims that a good sniper can hit a target that's up to 8,202 feet away. For context, the Macmillan TAC-50, which is an anti-material rifle that previously held the record for the longest ever sniper kill, has an effective range of 5,905 feet. The Horizon's Lord supposedly adds 2,700 feet to that range. Naturally, that means the rifle had attracted a lot of attention before it was ever used on the battlefield. Mayak first presented it at the International Exhibition of Arms and Security in June 2021 in Kyiv. The event was notably held before Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine, suggesting that Mayak foresaw a need for a weapon that would allow Ukrainian soldiers to fight over long distances. Regardless, the weapon attracted a lot of attention from the beginning, though it was seen as more of a technical demonstration of what might be possible, rather than a viable weapon that could be used in combat just yet. Ukraine has proven that assumption wrong. Interestingly, it also appears that the Horizon's Lord rifle could meet the specifications of a proposed rifle that the United States wants to acquire. According to the Defense Post, the US military is currently engaging several defense industry partners to develop a new long-range sniper rifle that could be introduced to the battlefield. That rifle would need to have an effective range of 5,520 feet, a range that the Horizon's Lord easily exceeds, and would need to offer a modular design. Again, the Horizon's Lord seems perfect. It's a customizable rifle that can be chambered with several types of rounds. The only sticking point would be length and weight. The US wants a rifle that's no more than 56 inches long and weighs less than 10 kilograms. The Horizon's Lord exceeds both of those requirements, though its exceptional range may just be high enough that the US military will overlook its length and weight issues to bring it into the fold anyway. After all, they'll have noticed it being used to break a record just like the rest of the world has noticed. That brings us back to the kill. It was taken by a Ukrainian soldier named Vyacheslav Kowalski. Far from being a member of Ukraine's special forces, Kowalski is a 58-year-old ex-businessman, but he clearly has the spirit of an elite soldier. According to NDTV, Kowalski waited for several hours just to have a chance of lining up a shot. When the opportunity arose, his target stood a staggering 12,468 feet away, the length of 2 Brooklyn bridges stacked end to end. Obviously, hitting his target was the foremost thing on Kowalski's mind, but in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, he also revealed that he hoped that making the shot would have a huge impact on the Russian mentality. "I was thinking that Russians would not know that that's what Ukrainians are capable of," he told the newspaper before signing off with a chilling message. "Let them sit at home and be afraid." Kowalski also provided more details about the circumstances that led to him taking his now famous shot. Along with his spotter, he spent several hours observing Russian soldiers as they chopped wood. He could have killed any one of them if he wanted, though both he and his spotter decided the soldiers in his sights were too low-ranking to justify the round. They wanted to hit an officer. The duo continued to search until they found another group of Russian soldiers far off in the distance. A quick scan revealed that one of the soldiers was giving orders to the rest of the group. The Ukrainians had found their officer. Kowalski received the simple instruction from his spotter: "You can." But he didn't, at least not immediately. Using special software, the sniper measured the distance to his target, with the software also providing him with meteorological data and allowed him to determine how much of an impact the wind, temperature, humidity, and curvature of the Earth would have on his bullet once he pulled the trigger. Then he took a test shot. That shot revealed that he'd gotten the wind speed wrong, which was all he needed to know. After making a couple of adjustments, Kowalski loaded his rifle with a bullet measuring 6.2 inches long. Aimed, fired. The bullet fired out of the rifle at a speed of 960 miles per hour, hurtling towards its target. Just 9 seconds later, the Russian officer was down, and Kowalski had recorded the longest ever distance for a successful sniper hit. Kowalski had reportedly already started packing away his equipment before his spotter confirmed that the shot had found the mark. It sounds like a story out of a film, and one that could easily have been made up as an attempt to use it as propaganda to instill fear into Russian troops, but there's a twist. Footage of the shot exists. The footage was released on X, formerly Twitter, and appears to confirm everything that the sniper claims. Admittedly, the footage is blurry. Around 2 seconds into the video, the viewer hears the mighty bang of the rifle being fired. Nothing happens for several seconds after that, until the Russian officer, who's circled in the video, drops. Assuming that the shot is valid and the existence of footage suggests that it is, the shot broke the previous record of 11,614 feet held by a Canadian sniper who claimed his kill in Iraq in 2017. In fact, it doesn't just break the record, it shatters it by about 850 feet, showcasing just how powerful Horizon's Lord could be as a tool for Ukraine to instill fear into Russian soldiers. After all, this isn't a rifle that's used to fire from conventional sniping positions. Any Russian who's out in the open in Ukraine would be in danger. They would never know if the sights of a Horizon's Lord rifle are being trained on them. And even more terrifyingly, they'd have no way of knowing that a sniper is even scanning their location. However, not all are convinced that the shot is as record-breaking as Ukraine claims. For instance, NDTV notes that a US Marines sniper instructor named Steve Walsh isn't convinced that the shot was as skillful as Ukraine claims, or that the weapon used to achieve it is as impressive as it seems. For conventional sniping, there are so many variables that are hard to quantify, he says. So the reality is anything over about 1,300 meters, roughly 4,265 feet, can be more luck than skill. Perhaps he has a point. However, the footage appears to show a confirmed hit, regardless of how much luck or skill was involved. And according to Brad Millard, a ballistics expert based in the US, the 9 seconds it takes for the bullet to reach its target seems accurate based on the reported exit velocity of 960 miles per hour. Let's assume that it wasn't just luck that led to the shot landing. Instead, it was a combination of a 58-year-old sniper's skill and the weapon he had in his hands. Naturally, that brings us to another question. What makes the Horizon's Lord so special? We already have one of our answers from the examination of the rifle conducted earlier in the video. Its effective range is a staggering 8,202 feet, higher than any equivalent anti-material rifle used in the world today. A comparison to the two long-range rifles in service in the US military today showcases just how impressive the Horizon's Lord's range truly is. According to the Defense Post, the US currently uses either the M107 or MK15 rifles for hitting targets at extreme long ranges. The MK15 has an effective range of 5,906 feet, with the M107 capable of hitting targets 6,562 feet away. The Horizon's Lord has them both beaten substantially, adding 1,640 feet to the M107's range. For context, that adds the equivalent of 5.46 American football fields to the rifle's range. A staggering distance that makes it easy to see why Putin's troops will fear the prospect of it arriving on the Ukrainian battlefield. However, beyond the extreme range, the Horizon's Lord isn't especially unique or innovative in its design. Mayak hasn't reinvented anything in terms of how rifles are built, with the gun using previously existing technology, meaning that any other country could have made it. The secret isn't in the rifle itself, it's in the bullets. And bullets is the correct term to use here because the Horizon's Lord is capable of firing several types of rounds, which lends it the versatility it needs to be used both as an anti-material and anti-personnel rifle. Let's start with the bullet Kowalski used to achieve his record-breaking shot. According to Forces.net, experts believe that the sniper had configured his rifle so that it could fire 12.7 by 114 rounds. That type of cartridge was specifically highlighted by Mayak in the technical documentation it released for the rifle, with the company claiming it's been specially designed to destroy material targets and for use in counter-sniping combat. It says that the cartridge significantly exceeds the combat characteristics of the 14.5 by 114 cartridges typically used in anti-material sniper rifles by up to 35%, with the company noting that it has a smaller recoil momentum. That's important because it reduces the impact of snatching when the rifle is fired, an issue that can lead to a carefully calibrated rifle shooting off target because of the sheer force the bullet creates when it exits the chamber. The cartridge also allows the shooter to equip their rifle with a shorter barrel. This may not seem especially important until you realize that a shorter barrel reduces the rifle's overall weight. A lighter rifle is easier to transport, as well as being easier to adjust should the sniper need to change position to get a clearer shot. A shorter barrel also has another advantage. It opens up more positioning opportunities. Snipers won't have to worry as much about having a longer barrel that could potentially collide against cover or peek out far enough that an enemy soldier will be able to see the rifle before it's fired. Then there's the combination of case and round. As mentioned earlier, the 12.7 by 114 cartridge that Kowalski used is about 6 inches long. According to Forces.net, those cartridges have a large case coupled with a comparatively small round. Why does this matter? A larger case allows the sniper to pack the cartridge with far more gunpowder than they might be able to use with another cartridge, allowing for the round to be propelled out of the rifle at an extremely fast rate. Mayak says that the sniper's gunpowder choice could allow a bullet fired from Horizon's Lord to reach a maximum speed of 2,460 miles per hour, assuming a bullet weight of 750 grams and a barrel length of 47.2 inches for a shot of more than 10,170 feet. For context, that's supersonic speed. Specifically, it means a bullet fired out of the Horizon's Lord could move at 3.2 times the speed of sound, making it almost impossible to counter with laser-based defenses. Realistically, the 12.7 by 114 cartridge is never going to reach that speed in practice. The 10,170 feet required to hit 2,460 miles per hour is beyond the Horizon Lord's effective range. Still, the fact that the cartridge can be packed with enough gunpowder to make this theoretically possible shows you just how impressive Mayak's new cartridge is. The Firearm blog digs deeper into what makes the cartridge so special. It points out that the cartridge is designed to offer a best-of-both-worlds situation. It notes that cartridges such as the .408 Chaitak and the .416 Barrett, though being excellent choices for extreme long-range sniping, are only useful for anti-personnel use. They have no armor-piercing qualities, meaning they're not viable as anti-material cartridges. Conversely, a dedicated anti-material cartridge, such as the 14.5 by 114, may be capable of taking out armored targets. However, its selection of special-use bullets is compromised by the fact that it has no precision bullets available, making it less useful over extremely long distances. That's why Mayak chose a 50 caliber barrel for the Horizon's Lord. With a 50 caliber barrel, the company could create a multi-task cartridge, the 12.7x114, that's capable of carrying long-range precision bullets, as well as several special military bullets that are usually used in guns that have .50 BMG barrels. From there, all they had to do was take a 14.5x114 cartridge and neck it down. That reduced the cartridge's length while still maintaining the bottom end of the cartridge that can be used to hold a large amount of gunpowder. Obviously, this matters for the propulsion needed to send the bullet flying over longer distances than ever before. However, there are other benefits for having this neck-down cartridge for the Horizon's Lord. The 12.7x114 is a ballistically superior cartridge that maintains a flatter trajectory in flight than the 14.5x114. While that doesn't mean it's unaffected by atmospheric conditions, it's less affected by the wind and can better retain its energy over a long distance. Having a smaller cartridge that's still capable of traveling over large distances also meant the Horizon's Lord could be made smaller than it otherwise would be. Again, that makes it easier to transport. The gun can fit into any common vehicle, with both rifle and cartridges being easier to carry over the battlefield. So the Horizon's Lord has an impressive and innovative cartridge. But even though the rifle itself isn't as innovative, it's still an impressive piece of kit. Take its modular design as an example. Though the 12.7x114 is clearly the star of this sniper show, Mayak understands that it's not always going to be the best choice. That's why they've incorporated modularity into the Horizon Lord's design. As the firearm blog points out, a sniper can switch out the rifle's barrel and bolt head easily, changing the rifle's caliber in a matter of minutes. What does this mean in practice? With the appropriate barrels and bolt heads, the Horizon's Lord caliber can be changed to the .416 Barrett and .46 Steyr, and even to the .50 BMG that inspired the 12.7x114 cartridge's design. It can also be converted to fire 14.5x114 rounds, a useful feature given that those rounds are more likely readily available to Ukrainian soldiers, as well as even larger 23x115 rounds. It's also important to note that the customized cartridge Mayak has created for the Horizon's Lord will rapidly take a heavy toll on its default barrel. Enabling rapid switching of barrels thus serves as a practical use in terms of allowing for quick replacements when needed, as well as offering the rifle immense versatility that makes it usable in several situations. And the versatility extends to the 12.7x114 cartridge. According to Mayak, several machine guns, including the Soviet-era KPV heavy machine gun that's seeing heavy use in the Ukrainian war, can be converted to fire the 12.7x114 cartridge instead of their typical 14.5x114s. There's just one caveat to all of this design ingenuity. Mayak hasn't released any test footage to show how accurate the Horizon's Lord is when it's switched to be able to fire 14.5x114 or .50 BMG cartridges. That means we don't know if the impressive range achieved with a 12.7x114 cartridge is replicated when the rifle uses something larger. Nevertheless, it all adds up to an impressive package. A sniper rifle that has a unique cartridge that isn't available to Russia, as well as a gun that technically has no set caliber thanks to its switchable barrels. For Ukraine, that means their soldiers get a gun that's light enough for them to carry in the field and can be converted as needed if they run out of 12.7x114 cartridges. But perhaps the most surprising thing about Mayak's innovation is that the concept of the 12.4x114 cartridge isn't as new as it might appear. Surprisingly, nobody else has come up with it before. In a YouTube video published by The Sun, a UK newspaper, a British military expert explains that the 12.7x114's case capacity allows it to contain a lot of powder, while its design means it has a flat trajectory. We know this already. However, he also brings up that the Germans came up with a similar idea during World War II. The cartridge he demonstrates is a .50 cartridge that has a large case that tapers into an extremely thin neck. At the end of that neck lies a bullet, one that looks comedically small in comparison to the rest of the cartridge, with the expert pointing out that the Germans did exactly what Mayak did for their 12.7x114 cartridge, necking the case down to fit the bullet while providing a case that could hold plenty of gunpowder. Ultimately, the expert concludes that there's no technical innovation in the Horizon's Lord itself. Instead, the success of the rifle comes down to Mayak's intelligent selection of components coupled with the unique cartridge the company has created for the gun. All of this leaves us with one more question. What does the record-breaking shot achieved with the Horizon's Lord mean for Russia? Putin's soldiers now know that Ukraine's snipers are equipped with a weapon that can kill soldiers at distances never before thought possible. They also know that the Horizon's Lord isn't just an anti-personnel rifle, it's an anti-material rifle that can be used to take out armored vehicles at great distances. So Russia now has to deal with Ukraine having a capability on the field that isn't available to them. And though it's possible that Russia's weapons manufacturers may be trying to replicate the Horizon's Lord and, crucially, SnipeX's unique cartridge, the odds are that they're not going to succeed unless they can get their hands on either for reverse engineering. However, the rifle's impact may not be as devastating as it could have been. After all, the war in Ukraine has seen heavy use of drones for attack and surveillance throughout. Those drones are as capable as a sniper's bullet of traveling extensive distances before striking a target, so it's possible that Russia may adapt by using its drones to hunt for Ukrainian sniper positions further afield, potentially allowing them to counter the use of the Horizon's Lord. It would be no different than the games of cat and mouse already being played out on the battlefield in Ukraine. Only now, Russia has to search much further afield to ensure its troops aren't going to be ambushed by Ukraine's new rifle. But what are your thoughts? Do you think the Horizon's Lord and its special cartridge provide Ukraine with a huge tactical advantage on the battlefield? Do you believe this was the gun responsible for breaking the world's sniping distance record, or is this an example of Ukraine creating the record to use as propaganda in its war with Russia? Drones have rapidly ascended as the vanguards of modern warfare, and Ukraine's tenacious struggle in the skies is redefining their role. In the turbulent tides of the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, drones emerged as critical game changers, and this paradigm has persisted through the ongoing war in Ukraine. Employed for surveillance, striking high-value targets like the cruiser Moskva, and even breaching enemy lines, drones have enabled Ukraine to counteract Russia's numerical might. However, the balance of power is shifting. As of late 2023, Russia has escalated its drone production, overshadowing Ukraine's efforts and presenting new challenges on the battlefield. In response, Ukraine has innovated with a variety of anti-drone technologies, from handheld jammers disrupting enemy communications to sophisticated anti-drone systems that guard the skies. Ukraine's arsenal is adapting rapidly. In this deep dive, we will explore how these systems are not just defensive tools, but pivotal assets in Ukraine's strategy to reclaim control of the air. What ingenious solutions are keeping Ukrainian hopes alive in this high-stakes aerial chess game? Let's delve into the technologies that could redefine the future of aerial warfare. Ukraine's defense against the drone swarms of the 21st century begins with a weapon straight out of a sci-fi film: the EDM-4S Electronic Drone Mitigation System, better known as the Skywiper. This isn't your average drone battling hardware. The Skywiper sidesteps conventional kinetic warfare, instead deploying electromagnetic pulses, EMPs, that wreak havoc on a drone's communication and navigation systems. Imagine this: instead of bullets, you're firing invisible energy that turns sophisticated tech into floating bricks. Styled to mimic the classic rifle, the Skywiper offers a familiar feel to those behind the trigger. Operators take aim and fire much like they would a conventional weapon, but instead of lead, they're launching a directed EMP blast that can disable enemy drones from up to 5 kilometers away. Equipped with an arsenal of antennas, the Skywiper can jam signals across multiple frequencies, including the standard 2.4 GHz and 5.8 GHz, and it has special features for tampering with GPS and GLONASS, the Russian satellite navigation system. But what keeps this high-tech rifle running? A robust battery life ensures the Skywiper is combat-ready for 35 to 60 minutes on a single charge. It's lightweight too, tipping the scales at just 12 pounds thanks to its aluminium construction, making it a breeze to carry into the heart of battle. The Skywiper also comes with a suite of accessories like a holographic sight, additional optical sights for precision targeting, and even a carrying case for when you need to move fast. Developed by NT Service, a Lithuanian firm, the Skywiper debuted at the 2019 Security and Counter-Terrorism Expo in London. Originally designed for civilian security, guarding events and VIPs, it didn't take long for military strategists to see its potential against the drone threats of modern warfare. By 2020, Ukraine had inked a deal for 37 custom Skywipers through the NATO Support and Supply Agency, adapting the tech to meet the unique demands of its armed forces. But did it work in combat? Fast forward to 2022, and images of the Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief Valery Zaluzhny brandishing the Skywiper went viral, signaling its active deployment in the field. Demonstrations of its effectiveness weren't far behind, with the Skywiper credited for neutralizing Russia's elusive Elleron-3 drones, a notable feat given the high stakes of aerial reconnaissance in warfare. Each downed drone is a victory in the silent, unseen battle raging above. You see, the Aileron-3 is a piece of aerial snooping technology from Russia. This short-range surveillance drone, manufactured by Enix, buzzes through the skies at 130 km per hour and can cover 50 km on a single battery charge, lasting about 100 minutes. Small but mighty, it measures just 0.56 meters long and 1.42 meters across its wings, making it a slippery target. But it's not too slippery for the Skywiper, which Ukraine has tactically deployed to neutralize these airborne intruders. The effectiveness of the Skywiper is so notable that Ukraine has turned to the power of the people, launching a crowdfunding campaign to beef up its arsenal. The Help Heroes of Ukraine Fund is currently seeking donations to snag 5 more Skywiper guns, each tagged at $15,000. The stakes are high, but so is the confidence in this cutting-edge technology. But wait, there's more. Ukraine isn't just importing solutions, it's crafting its own. Enter the anti-drone KVS-G6, a homegrown hero straight out of Ivano-Frankivsk Oblast. Produced by Kvertas Technology, this portable EMP anti-drone gun mirrors the functionality of its Lithuanian cousin, the Skywiper, yet flaunts a unique design. A recent demonstration captured by Radio Free Europe revealed its prowess. Zap a drone with the KVS-G6 and watch the operator's control screen go dark. Total shutdown, no responses. Curious about the inner workings? A peek inside the Kvertas facility unveils the magic behind the machine. Microchips and radio generators nestled near the trigger, ready to jam enemy drones into oblivion. The battery, pulsing with dim blue lights, sits snugly in what would be the magazine slot on a traditional rifle. With antennas possibly akin to those on the Skywiper perched above, this weapon is not just a tool, but a statement of Ukrainian ingenuity and resilience. Priced at about $12,000 each, these guns have become hot items. Since the war's escalation, Kvertas has produced about 80 units, with orders for at least 20 more. The main buyers? Volunteer groups, charitable organizations, and forward-thinking businesses, all eager to equip Ukraine's front lines with this game-changing technology. So what's the range on these bad boys? About 3.5 kilometers, give or take, depending on the day's conditions. As Ukraine forges ahead in the field of drone warfare, the innovations don't stop at handheld devices. Recognizing the necessity for a diverse arsenal, Ukrainian defenses include not just man-portable anti-drone guns, but also more permanent solutions like the Sky Control system. Manufactured by Poland's Advanced Protection Systems (APS), Sky Control is a fortress of technology, shielding everything from critical infrastructure to bustling public places from the aerial threats of intrusive drones. The Sky Control system distinguishes itself as a multi-sensor powerhouse capable of detecting and neutralizing hostile drones under any conditions, day or night, within a 10-kilometer radius. At its core lies a radar sensor, operating in the high-frequency X-band, equipped with state-of-the-art multiple input, multiple output (MIMO) technology. This tech marvel efficiently distinguishes between drones and other aerial objects, ensuring swift and accurate responses. But how does it really know what's buzzing above? Thanks to its acoustic sensors, which utilize a sophisticated microphone array, Sky Control doesn't just spot drones, it learns their sounds. Over time, this system can classify noises from different directions, turning the Sky Control into an ever-learning sentinel in the sky. The optical prowess of Sky Control adds another layer of vigilance. Equipped with cameras that boast a 30x zoom, it doesn't just watch but observes, providing crucial evidence in civilian settings or valuable reconnaissance for military strategists. These cameras work in tandem with the radar to ensure even the smallest drone doesn't slip by unnoticed, distinguishing friend from foe up to 700 meters away. But what if a drone is detected? That's where Sky Control's radio sensors come into play. These sensors can determine how a drone communicates with its operator and, upon detection, can disrupt this communication. This forces the drone either to return to its starting point or to its operator, effectively neutralizing the threat. The system also includes a robust multiband jammer that can target various navigation systems like GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, and China's Baidu, making it a versatile tool in electronic warfare. Despite its sophistication, Sky Control boasts user-friendly transport and assembly features. According to APS, the system can be set up in under 5 minutes with its click-and-lock system and is easily transportable by truck, making it as mobile as it is effective. The Ukrainian military began deploying the Sky Control in September 2022, and since then, APS reports a 90% success rate in neutralizing Russian drones. However, as formidable as they are, systems like Skywiper and Sky Control aren't without their limits. The EMPs they emit can disable but not destroy UAVs, leaving the potential for the drones to be recovered and reused if not adequately handled post-neutralization. But here's the good news. If successful, these weapons will jam the target drone, which will make it fall to the ground, forcing an emergency landing, or get it to return to its designated base. Numerous examples of Ukrainian soldiers capturing drones disabled by these weapons have circulated on social media. The EMP does not erase the downed drone's data. Once captured, the drone's photos, videos, flight path, and so on are all available to those who shot them down. Drone jammers like the Sky Control must know or otherwise detect the frequency of their target drones in order to jam them. While mostly effective for now, it presents a problem. Already, drone operators are beginning to adapt to these jamming attempts by using specially designed artificially intelligent systems to evade jamming. Drones that can operate on their own do not need to have a link to a human operator and therefore will not fall down or retreat in the face of these EMPs because they do not need to communicate with humans to carry out their missions. If anti-drone jamming weapons are not successful, there can be harsh consequences. As noted, most modern drones have a return-to-base function built in that takes over after they lose their controlling signals. Experienced drone operators will be able to take advantage of this function and set the drone's target as the designated base for it to return to in the case of a signal jam. If these EMP-based anti-drone weapons don't bring the offending UAV to the ground, the target is therefore still vulnerable, especially if it's static. Many drones also have an inertial guidance system which can keep them moving toward their programmed targets even if their communications with human operators are lost. So while these anti-drone weapons might work well against surveillance drones, drones which have dedicated targets will be less affected by their EMPs. These weapons are also not designed to target larger drones like the Iranian Shahed. The lesson is clear: electromagnetic methods are not enough against the modern drone threat. The US also learned this lesson the hard way in the attack on its troops at the Tower 22 base in Jordan at the end of January. Kinetic methods are necessary for effective anti-drone defense. However, using missiles that can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars apiece to shoot down drones that cost only thousands or tens of thousands of dollars is not sustainable. Ukraine has struggled with this conundrum throughout the war. Enter the Australians and their Slinger drone killing system, manufactured by Electro-Optic Systems. Like the Sky Control, the Slinger is easy to deploy, as it can be moved around on the back of 4x4 trucks. The Slinger can also be used on armored fighting vehicles or even tanks. Each Slinger system is expensive at less than $1 million, but the cost per shot to take down a drone is much cheaper than a sophisticated precision missile. EOS claims that the cost of each engagement the Slinger takes part in ranges between $100 to $1,000. The Slinger has multiple ways to track enemy drones. It uses radar, laser tracking, cameras with a thermal imaging option, and stabilization algorithms to ensure accurate targeting. The weapon's cameras can detect targets at ranges between 12 and 13.7 kilometers, recognize them between 5.1 and 5.6 kilometers, and engage them at 4 to 4.7 kilometers. Accurate elimination of targets can be done at 800 meters. The sensor unit moves independently of the gun in both elevation and azimuth. Wind sensors further aid target tracking and stabilization of fire. EOS was well positioned to create a system capable of tracking small objects moving rapidly over long distances. It originated as a company to track objects in orbit as high as 36,000 kilometers. EOS can track objects as small as a coin from such distances. The Slinger uses a Bushmaster M230LF 30x113mm cannon to physically shoot down drones. The weapon has proven its effectiveness on video in accurately targeting small FPV drones from significant distances. The 30mm rounds are designed specifically for the Slinger's purpose. They are high-explosive shells which have radio frequency proximity fuses. The Slinger can fire single shots or automatically at a rate between 100 and 200 rounds per minute. Ukraine received its first 10 Slingers from EOS by the end of 2023 as part of an American military aid package passed before such packages came to a halt in October. EOS will supply a total of 110 Slingers over the course of the contract. The Slingers Ukraine is receiving will be mounted on M113 armored personnel carriers. Ukraine's electronic anti-drone weapons proved themselves around Avdiivka. Although the city fell in February, Russian forces stalled in their assaults several times and they took tens of thousands of casualties. As 2023 drew to a close, Russia shifted its assault on Avdiivka from vehicular and infantry to drone-based in an attempt to reduce casualties. It sent thousands of FPV drones laden with explosives to harass Ukrainian supply lines and, they hoped, choke the city off. However, the Ukrainians countered this threat when they discovered the Russians' new strategy. There were reports about Ukraine using its air force to fire American-made AGM-88 high-speed anti-radiation missiles to target jammers that Russian forces use to disrupt Ukrainian drones. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces carefully set up their own jammers to target Russian drones. The end result was that Ukraine was able to somewhat mitigate its numerical disadvantage in the number of drones and keep its supply lines open. Videos circulated on social media at this time of Ukrainian troops attacking Russian jammers and taking drones out of the sky. That was the evolution of a concept that has been proven before at Chernihiv on the Russian-occupied side of the Dnieper River in the summer of 2023. Ukrainian gunners targeted Russian drone jammers. Ukraine then set up its own jammers and brought down the Russian drones in the area. Because of this, Ukraine had local air superiority, which in turn allowed its forces to maintain their bridgehead on the opposite side of the river near Russian positions. The results of Chernihiv were confirmed at Avdiivka. Though the city fell, Ukraine's anti-drone strategy allowed it to hold out for far longer than it otherwise would have. These operations were part of an overall emphasis on electronic warfare. Just before his departure, General Zaluzhny listed electronic warfare systems as one of the Ukrainian military's most urgent needs. This followed on the words of Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukraine's Minister of Digital Transformation, in October. Every trench, every location of our soldiers must be protected by electronic warfare to analyze the frequencies at which enemy drones fly. This is a huge systematic work and a new doctrine of modern technological warfare. The length of the war in Ukraine has allowed militaries around the world to learn more about the importance of drones. Ukraine's drone operators revealed that in January 2024 alone, cheap kamikaze drones were responsible for the destruction of over 130 Russian tanks and 200 armored vehicles. And these drones are far less expensive than the artillery shells that Ukraine has been in such short supply of. However, Russian drones are just as effective, and there are now more of them. In a report for DW News in January, Anton Vaklenko, one of Ukraine's drone trainers, mentioned that it had taken a year of warfare for the generals on both sides of the conflict to understand the importance of small drones. He claims they are equally as far behind on the importance of electronic anti-drone systems. The experience at Avdiivka will have reinforced this notion. Once the Slinger and other kinetic anti-drone systems arrive in Ukraine in larger numbers, the world may see an example of a more layered anti-drone defense network. For many decades, defensive networks against traditional air power, like aviation and missiles, worked best when they were layered among many different parts, such as short, medium, and long-range kinetic defenses, ground and air-based radar stations, and so on. Ukraine started to build its anti-drone defenses by repurposing Cold War-era anti-aircraft artillery to shoot down the Shahed UAVs that became such an important part of Russia's attacks against its civilian infrastructure. Ukraine then began to deploy drone jammers in greater numbers on the individual level with portable EMP devices, and on the squad level with the Sky Control system. Soon, we should see how well smaller kinetic methods, like the Slinger, work in this network. One thing is now very clear: drones have been a democratizing influence in warfare, shifting momentum on the battlefield towards smaller actors with less resources and allowing them to do far more damage to traditional elements of state-based warfare, like armored units. A layered defense network against drones, which will get smarter and more lethal, will therefore be one of the most important tools for 21st century militaries to develop. The world is sure to watch Ukraine and Russia's drone defenses closely as the war continues. What do you think about Ukraine's drone defenses and anti-drone strategies? Will it be able to regain the advantage in drone warfare that the Ukrainians lost in the second year of the war? What does it take to fight off a superpower? When Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, many observers and analysts assumed the war would be over quickly. As Russian troops massed on the border, stormed into the country and laid siege to Kyiv, it seemed like only a matter of time until Vladimir Putin was in control of his smaller neighbor. But against the odds, Ukraine's armed forces defended their territory and began to win victory after victory. How did they do it? All year, social media has been filled with home videos of the many ways that soldiers and civilians alike have countered the bigger, better-equipped Russian military. One of these has been repurposing salvaged equipment from defeated Russian forces, old Soviet leftovers, and even abandoned civilian homes. This has long been a tactic of underdogs in war, but here's how Ukrainians have taken the practice to a whole new level. Since the beginning of the conflict, large amounts of machinery have been left behind, captured, or shipped into the country. Now, in scenes resembling the weaponized steampunk vehicles from the movie Mad Max, Ukrainian soldiers have turned a range of civilian cars, trucks, tractors, and dune buggies into fearsome tools of combat. Armed to the teeth, these quickly constructed weapons have been inflicting some serious damage on Russian troops all year long. Valuable against both tanks and aircraft, they can function in nearly any condition, firing and racing away before they can be targeted. Civilian vehicles mounted with firepower are nothing new. In fact, they've been around almost as long as cars themselves. But the modern variety, known as technicals, were pioneered in places like Afghanistan, Libya, and Somalia during the 1990s. Originally a tool of armed groups without access to proper military hardware, they became a tool of governments during the early days of the US-led War on Terror. US and British special forces began using technicals extensively to counter the Taliban in Afghanistan, as they could navigate places with little to no infrastructure. Gradually, the technical became a key part of special operations, while also retaining its value to less equipped forces. But with sufficient military hardware at their disposal, why are Ukrainian forces utilizing technicals? While most lack the armor of a tank, technicals are fast and cheap. This makes them perfect for waging asymmetric warfare against a stronger enemy. They also do well in hard-to-reach areas, since technicals are much easier to find parts for and repair than traditional military hardware like tanks or Humvees. The war has left Ukraine filled with vehicles, many perfect for conversion into these deadly machines. And while they've recently stepped up their efforts, the story of Ukraine's creative technicals goes all the way back to 2014. After Russia annexed Crimea that year, Ukraine's volunteer battalions began to assemble a fleet of homemade war vehicles. These were often put together in abandoned industrial warehouses. Using scrap metal and old Soviet parts, the battalions began to retrofit everything they could get their hands on in preparation for more Russian aggression. Many of their early models resembled reinforced tanks, focusing on extremely heavy armor over mobility to try and hold a precarious front line. But as the prospect of a full-scale invasion loomed, Ukraine's production of light technicals greatly increased. When full-scale war finally arrived, millions fled their homes, fearing for their lives. The exodus left a huge collection of cars, trucks, tractors, and other automotives abandoned across the country. Many more modern vehicles were also donated from abroad, including armor-plated pickup trucks and SUVs. In the weeks after the invasion, dozens more small, crowd-funded factories were established inside and outside Ukraine's borders. There, volunteers attach weapons and armor plating to technicals and send them to the front line. While it can slow the cars down, the extra layer of armor on a technical is crucial, as it can save those inside from shrapnel or other deadly hazards. Among the most successful of these retrofitting operations is Cars for Ukraine, run by Ivan Oleski, a 25-year-old esports analyst originally from Kherson. Started in March, his venture has created dozens of technicals from cars around Europe. They can purchase each truck for under $6,000 and quickly transform them into fearsome weapons of war. Each is also a statement of patriotic intent, painted with a Ukrainian flag and a now popular slogan from early in the war, "Russian warships, go f*** yourselves." But this is just one among dozens of operations, many of which are using extremely innovative designs for their technicals. While almost anything with wheels can be made into a technical, they have traditionally been constructed from light flatbeds and pickup trucks. Mitsubishi L200s are reportedly among the most desirable cars for technicals in the Ukraine, along with the Ford Ranger and Toyota Hilux models. All of these are known for their durability and easy handling. This is crucial for quickly escaping enemy fire and navigating areas with unpredictable terrain and weather conditions. Ukrainian technicals have also been seen sporting a massive range of weaponry, including machine guns, drones, and multi-rocket launch systems. Many of these were taken from defeated Russian forces. This has led to some eye-catching results all across the internet. A recent taunting video from Ukraine's defense ministry shows a Russian helicopter rocket launcher attached to the back of one such Mitsubishi truck. In another instance, a dilapidated Soviet-era Volga sedan was mounted with a remote-controlled 14.5mm heavy machine gun. While both the car and machine gun are dated, they have been integrated with the modern remote control system. Clever designs like this have helped Ukraine reduce its battlefield casualties, while inflicting substantial damage on the often unprepared Russian military. Another group of soldiers were filmed using an automatic Soviet 2B9 Vasilek 82mm mortar from the back of a farm truck. The Vasilek is usually based on a small, wheeled carriage and can rapidly fire armor-piercing shells with 75-gram warheads capable of penetrating 100mm of plating. While Soviet weapons like these are decades old, they can still dish out punishing firepower. This is especially true when mounted on a technical, giving the mortar far more versatility than the standard ground-based model. Others are more flashy, like this BMW technical, complete with a Ukrainian-themed paint job and truck-mounted machine gun. And it's not just domestic and Soviet-made weapons either. Western military support has also given Ukraine hundreds of powerful modern weapon systems like Stingers, howitzers, and Javelin anti-tank missiles. Ukrainian soldiers have been making the most of this new equipment. One unit has been using a flatbed technical to transport mobile anti-aircraft teams armed with Stingers. After spotting a target, the soldiers can be seen quickly dismounting, firing, and returning to the vehicle to make their getaway. Another creative unit applied the tactic to the ground, making their Peugeot truck into a mobile hunter-killer anti-tank platform using javelins. The key feature of all of these models is their ability to quickly escape, before Russian artillery can target them with retaliatory strikes. But it doesn't end there. Recently, it seems that Ukrainian technicals have also moved beyond regular civilian vehicles. Pictures and videos have emerged of soldiers using heavily armored dune buggies, painted in dark green camo and studded with weapons. Several of these vehicles were recently seen near the strategic city of Izium, complete with Stugna P anti-tank guided missiles attached to the roof. The Ukrainian-designed Stugna system has a range of over 3 miles, and its missiles can be remotely guided by console or laser-targeted manually. They can also carry many different types of warheads, including tandem-style rounds designed to break tank armor, high-explosive fragmentation, and even thermobaric payloads. The Stugna is usually fired from a tripod on the ground, requiring 2 to 4 soldiers to reload and move the unit, but mounting the anti-tank weapons on a technical gives them far more flexibility, allowing them to be used for hit-and-run missions. But Ukraine's ingenuity doesn't end there. A similar domestically produced missile system, the RK-3 Corsair, was seen on a buggy in another part of the country earlier this summer. Usually ground-based like the Stugna, Corsair systems have a range of 1.5 miles and can also use a range of different shells. Even lighter than pickup trucks, these deadly dune buggies have become invaluable to Ukrainian troops as the war has moved into the eastern part of the country. Many other rocket launchers have also been spotted on Ukraine's buggies, including dated Soviet weaponry. For instance, one video shows a buggy covered in camouflage netting firing a 9M111 Faget wire-guided missile system. These buggies themselves are pretty badass too. They appear to be from a range of models. Some are likely modified versions of the Ranger or MRZR models produced by US defense contractor Polaris. In their off-the-shelf form, these vehicles are intended for reconnaissance and logistics missions rather than open combat. Depending on the model, the Polaris dune buggies have over 100 to 200 horsepower and over a 2,000-pound payload capacity. Despite being very light and maneuverable, they also have an extremely durable chassis and strong suspension, making them ideal for navigating difficult areas. But Ukrainians also appear to have reinforced theirs with body armor and camouflage for extra protection against Russian fire. Other Ukrainian buggies have been far more homemade. One, captured in a photograph by the Associated Press, was constructed from a Peugeot 307 coupe convertible and with the doors and windows removed. While not a tactical vehicle like the Polaris buggies, the Peugeot 307 is still fast, able to go from 0 to 60 in 8 to 10 seconds. Speed is crucial for Ukraine's technicals, especially for the country's rapid counteroffensives in recent months. The buggy hosting the Corsair missile system is yet another model. This variety of buggy also seems to have been domestically manufactured. It has 2 seats in front and a cargo platform at the rear of the vehicle, fitted with a tripod and optics for the Corsair missile system. On the road, 2 missiles are carried in storage boxes at the back for easy retrieval and use. But how have these strange-looking dune buggies and other technicals helped Ukraine hold its own against Russian tanks and artillery? Early in the war, they played a part in helping Ukrainians repel Russia's initial push into Kyiv. Their high maneuverability proved much better at urban combat than cumbersome tanks. And after the Russian offensive failed, the fighting moved east, shifting into a heavy artillery war in the Donbass and Luhansk regions. For a number of reasons, technicals have been even more important in this context. Despite its battlefield victories, Ukraine has been heavily outgunned by Russia all year. While this has started to change thanks to the influx of Western weaponry, Russia's enormous guns can still easily destroy slow-moving and immobile targets. But by attaching their firepower to technicals, Ukraine has made their artillery much harder to destroy. Another advantage has to do with geography. While the eastern part of Ukraine is relatively flat, it is crisscrossed with rivers and has fewer major roads than the west. This means that much of the fighting is taking place in the countryside, where technicals have a substantial mobility advantage over tanks. Russian tank losses have been enormous, and by mid-October they had lost nearly 1,400 tanks, averaging nearly 10 a day. Ukraine's inventive use of technicals has contributed to these startling numbers. Whatever course the war may take this winter, it seems likely that technicals will remain a key part of Ukrainian operations due to their speed, flexibility, and low cost. While they certainly look like something out of a dystopian universe, these vehicles have proven themselves to be extremely effective in real-life combat, and just as they have gotten more inventive since the beginning of the war, Ukraine's technicals will probably keep evolving as they receive new and more lethal weapons from the West. But what do you think? How valuable have the technicals been to Ukraine? And will they keep being used and upgraded? Trying to defend yourself in a war against Russia is no joke. In its efforts to defend itself against Putin's aggressive invasion, Ukraine has needed all the help it can get. Here's how a shipment of US-Vietnam War weapons could help Ukraine turn the tide against Russia's military. After Russia invaded its smaller neighbor in February, the United States offered to evacuate Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky from the capital. But in a now famous statement of his resolve, Zelensky responded that the fight is here. I need ammunition, not a ride. And soon Western countries were happy to grant his wish. In the months since the war began, the US, NATO, and others have supplied Ukraine with an enormous amount of military aid. In fact, the United States alone has contributed over $18.6 billion since February. This has mostly taken the form of lethal modern weaponry, including the high-mobility artillery rocket systems or HIMARS, Javelin anti-tank missiles, self-destructing Phoenix Ghost drones, and many others. Weapons like these stopped the invasion in its tracks and have helped Ukraine successfully fight back Russian troops all year. As the war transitioned from urban combat to a devastating artillery slugfest in the east of the country, obtaining new firepower has become a major factor in success or defeat. Accordingly, in the past few months, Western assistance to Ukraine has stepped up again. It has started to allow Ukrainian troops to achieve artillery superiority over Russia, driving them out of major cities like Kherson. Ukraine is now firing as many artillery shells as Russia, while satellite-guided targeting is making their strikes longer range and more precise. But modern weaponry isn't the only technology making an appearance on the battlefield. Recently, the US has once again expanded its security assistance to Ukraine. In addition to contemporary weapons, they have made plans to supply Ukraine with upgraded armaments from the era of the Vietnam War. Other NATO countries are expected to follow suit, potentially supplying Ukrainians with a major new source of firepower. While many consider them more fit for a museum, these older weapon systems could still be lethal. They could even help Ukraine counter some of Russia's biggest new threats. But what exactly are these weapons, and how much of an edge will they give Ukraine in the coming months? The main piece of Vietnam-era military hardware currently being delivered to Ukraine are MIM-23 Hawk missile systems. Developed by Raytheon from 1952 onwards, Hawk stands for Homing All the Way Killer, a nod to the missile's guided targeting. A medium to long-range surface-to-air missile, the Hawk was first put into service in 1959. In those days, the US was increasing its involvement in Vietnam, where the Hawk was used extensively. Designed as a more mobile counterpart to the even older MIM-14 Nike Hercules missile, the Hawk emphasized portability over range and altitude. Full of complex components, the original system was also notoriously unreliable and prone to breakdowns. It had a kill-shot probability of just over 50% and an average time of only 43 hours between repairs. Because of this, the US military spent decades updating the Hawk missiles, partially through the addition of a semi-active radar homing guidance system. This radar upgrade vastly improved the Hawk's accuracy, and the new model, known as the Improved Hawk or iHawk, entered service in 1971. Over the next 20 years, the iHawk continued to be upgraded with the addition of electronic jamming measures and new warheads for use against short-range targets. These chances increased the iHawk's killshot percentage to over 85%, making it into a potent weapon. The models being sent to Ukraine are slightly older, but can intercept aerial targets 45 to 50 kilometers, 28 to 31 miles away, at an altitude of 65,000 feet, 20,000 meters. Using solid fuel propellant, the Hawks can reach a maximum speed of Mach 2.4. Each missile is roughly 1,300 pounds, 600 kilograms, and 17 feet, 5.2 meters, in length, with a 119-pound fragmentation warhead that can deal some serious damage. Hawk missiles are definitely outdated. They were retired by the US Marine Corps in 2002 and replaced by the more powerful Patriot system even earlier. The US has so far refused to send Patriot missiles to Ukraine, since doing so would require US soldiers on the ground to operate. Even so, Hawks are a serious upgrade to the Stinger missiles Ukraine has been given so far. While Stingers can be carried by a single soldier, they have far less range and destructive power. In contrast, Hawk missiles are better known for shooting down higher-altitude Russian fighter jets. They can also more effectively counter the Iranian-made Shahed kamikaze drones, which Russia has been using to wreak havoc on Ukraine's cities. The main advantage of the Shahed drones is that they are cheap and numerous. Russia has reportedly ordered over 2,400 of them from Iran. The drones are fired in groups, so even if most are shot down, a few can usually get through to dive bomb their unlucky target. Considering Ukraine only has so many surface-to-air missiles, there is a high chance that this keeps happening. And since each Shahed drone costs only $20,000, it's a waste to destroy them with powerful air defenses like the long-range NASAMS missiles, which can cost over $1.2 million per shot. But Hawk missiles could be the perfect solution for countering the threat from kamikaze drones. While not nearly as cheap as Shahed drones, their age does make them inexpensive for missiles, at roughly $250,000 each. And while the US hasn't disclosed how many Hawk missiles it currently has or is sending to Ukraine, there are probably a lot of them. At the peak of their production in the 1980s, the US had over 27,000 Hawk missiles in its inventory. While most of these are less advanced than the later models, they could provide a real boost to Ukrainian firepower. There's just one hitch in this plan: the Hawk launchers. The missiles are transported and fired from rolling M192 launchers, which can be wheeled along the ground with 3 Hawk missiles mounted on the back. The issue? The US might not have any in working condition. Because of their extended time in storage, an American official told Reuters that the country's Hawk launchers are in disrepair. However, one partial solution to this has come from an unlikely source: Spain. The European country announced that it would send 4 of its own Hawk launchers to the Ukraine, to be paired with the refurbished US missiles. Ukraine may also create some homemade solutions, as they've successfully adapted lots of other old-school military technology. The first Hawk missiles will likely be on their way to Ukraine soon, especially since they are being sent through the Presidential Drawdown Authority, or PDA. The PDA is a legal tool allowing the US president to transfer military equipment from storage without congressional approval in emergencies. The Biden administration has already issued the PDA extensively to support Ukraine. Since August 2021, it has ordered 11 drawdowns of military equipment into the country. Congress has been on board as well, increasing the cap of the drawdowns from $100 million to nearly $11 billion for this year. Hawk missiles are just the latest part of this, and despite their age, they could prove to be a valuable piece of military assistance. Ukraine will certainly need all the weaponry it can get hold of, as the conflict doesn't look likely to stop anytime soon. And as it drags on, odd weapons deals like this one could become much more common. Why? Mainly because the war has shaken up the global arms industry, creating sometimes surprising results like the Hawk missiles being sent to Ukraine. It's dramatically increased the demand for weapons by both Russia and Ukraine, but also by surrounding countries worried about more Russian aggression. In another recent example of this, Poland has signed a $5.8 billion defense contract with South Korea, far from one of its usual suppliers of weaponry. The deal includes hundreds of artillery rocket launchers, along with tanks and howitzers that Poland hopes will beef up its deterrence against Russia. And South Korea is just one of a number of countries whose weapons are now in high demand. Iran's choice to begin supplying Russia with drones is also a sign of this, as is Turkey's recent decision to sell similar weapons to Ukraine. Month by month, more countries seem to be getting sucked into the conflict, and since Russia accounts for nearly 20% of the global arms trade, its recent battlefield failures could also cause a steep decline in demand for their products. As this happens, China may also begin to take Russia's place as a major weapons supplier. Many other countries, from India to Bulgaria, are already working to create self-sufficient defense industries, in another sign of geopolitical change. Just like the Hawk missiles heading to Ukraine, these unusual decisions are all a product of the massive disruptions caused by 9 months of war in Europe. And as weapons continue to flood into the country, more unexpected changes will probably keep coming. But what do you think? Will the Hawk missiles give Ukraine the edge it needs to win the war? Will we see more unusual weapons deals in the coming year? Have you ever seen a real-life death ray? Well, if you haven't seen this clip of Russian troops advancing across a small, cratered field and suddenly getting struck by a powerful explosion, you may have been living under a rock. The video, posted on Twitter by Ukrainian officer Anatoly Stefan, dubbed "Destruction of Russians with a Death Ray," went viral, racking up more than 2.5 million views in just days, and it's not surprising. Dubbed a death ray because of the thin trail of smoke left in the weapon's wake, the video demonstrated incredible accuracy. As the survivors flee, they are struck by 2 more shots, leaving only bodies behind on the field. Online, supporters of Ukraine cheered the strike's seemingly mysterious and deadly firepower. But what are we looking at here? What exactly is this death ray? and just how effective could such a weapon be against Putin's forces. Many who viewed the video, including the poster himself, noted that the footage in question most likely shows a Stugna P, a Ukrainian-made anti-tank guided missile system, or ATGM. Military expert David Hamberling recently told Newsweek that he in fact believes this weapon to be a Stugna missile, which is often identifiable by its odd-looking smoke trail and, trust us, it's not referred to as a death ray for nothing. Ukraine's Stugna P missiles were first developed in the 1980s and 90s as a way to boost domestic defense capabilities and have since become a prominent weapon in the Ukrainian military arsenal. In 2021, Ukraine was in possession of over 7,000 Stugnas, with many more in production, while a version of the system called the Skiff has also been exported to Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Putin's increasing hostilities created an urgent need for more weapons in Ukraine. As a result, many of the Skiffs being produced for foreign customers were diverted back to Ukraine, leading to videos of Stugnas with Arabic characters being used against Russian forces. These missiles are notable and desirable for their versatility, accuracy, and effectiveness against modern armor. This combination of factors, while not exactly a death ray, makes the Stugna P one of the most valuable assets in Ukraine's recent efforts to defend itself against Russian aggression. The Stugna P was developed by the Ukrainian state-owned enterprise Luch Design Bureau, which has a long history of designing and producing high-tech military equipment. The Stugna missile was originally designed to fill the gap in the Ukrainian military's capability to destroy heavily armored targets, such as tanks and fortifications, from a safe distance. The Stugna P missile and launcher weigh over 60 pounds, 27.2 kilos each, and the system usually uses a 17.5, 8 kilo tandem warhead that can penetrate the armor of even the most advanced tanks. Additionally, its guidance system uses a semi-automatic command to line of sight (SACLOS) method, which allows the operator to guide the missile to its target using a sight or other sighting device. This remote piloting is a rather unusual feature for a small-sized ATGM like the Stugna. The operator can be up to 50 meters away from the missile, watching the target via remote video link. This video feed is often captured on soldiers' cell phones. One reason why social media is filled with footage of odd-looking strikes like the death ray. The ability to be operated remotely also means that soldiers using Stugna missiles are more difficult to retaliate against, which has helped reduce Ukrainian casualties. But that's not even the beginning of how all-around badass this weapon is. While it is heavier and slightly less powerful than the American Stinger or British Javelin missiles, the Stugna P can be launched from a variety of platforms, including by infantry soldiers, light vehicles, and helicopters. This versatility has made it an extremely valuable asset for the Ukrainian military, since it can be used in a wide range of scenarios and environments. Early in the war, many of the Stugnas were deployed in urban areas, destroying scores of Russian tanks on the roads to Kyiv. With the war's new focus in eastern Ukraine, Stugna missiles have proven valuable in rural off-road settings. This is partly because the missile is also highly effective against other types of armored targets, such as armored personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles, which Russia has relied on to supply its invasion force. Some Ukrainian troops have even adapted the Stugna missile system to be extra portable by mounting it on the back of fast-moving civilian vehicles or transporting mobile hunter-killer teams, consisting of several soldiers who can rapidly fire their missiles and then retreat before they can be targeted by enemy artillery or drones. The Stugna system consists of a lightweight launch tube and a missile that is fitted with a high-explosive anti-tank or HEAT warhead. The HEAT warhead is a tandem round, actually consisting of two parts: a precursor charge and a main charge. The precursor charge is designed to penetrate the outer layer of armor on the target, and the main charge is then detonated to cause significant damage to the target's internal structure. Inside the warhead, the second charge is next to a hollow, metal-lined cone. Upon detonation, the explosive blasts the metal into a narrow, high-speed projectile capable of piercing even the heaviest defenses up to 800 mm. The tandem warhead design is therefore highly effective against almost any modern armor, including reactive armor and composite armor, which are designed specifically to protect against ATGMs. The Stugna P's launch tube is also equipped with a sighting system that allows the operator to accurately engage targets at ranges of up to 3,000 meters. The sighting system incorporates a thermal imaging capability, which provides the operator with the ability to detect and engage targets in low light and no light conditions. This has again proven extremely valuable in parts of the eastern Ukraine, where infrastructure and electricity have been knocked out, allowing Ukrainian troops to continue their hit-and-run tactics against Russian artillery and tanks at night. Still not convinced that the Stugna P is one of the fiercest missiles ever invented? No problem, there's more. In addition to its destructive capabilities, the Stugna P has also been praised for its high level of reliability and accuracy. The missile's guidance system is designed to be extremely resistant to electronic countermeasures and jamming, and its relatively compact size and lightweight design don't hinder its accuracy in striking moving targets. Furthermore, the Stugna P's range makes the airborne missile a difficult target for enemy forces to pinpoint, even though the missile is relatively slow-moving compared to some other ATGMs. Its range has made it one of the most effective countermeasures to Russian tanks, by allowing Ukraine to devastate them from hidden off-road positions. Weapon systems like the Stugna are therefore a major reason why Russia has lost more than 1,000 individual tanks since the beginning of the 2022 invasion. In addition to the missile's own targeting capabilities, Ukrainian troops have also showcased uncanny human-guided accuracy in videos like that of the Death Ray. As one Twitter user replied to the post, "Whoever landed those 3 shots is, without a doubt, the best ATGM operator on Earth. He's practically sniping with it." The Stugna system is highly effective against a range of non-vehicle targets, including fortifications, buildings, and other structures with tactical importance. And as shown in the video, the system can also be used to engage soft targets such as personnel and unarmored vehicles, by swapping out the heat rounds for a high-explosive fragmentation-type warhead. This interchangeability is one of the key reasons why the Stugna P system is a highly versatile and modular weapon, one that can be used to engage a wide range of targets in a variety of scenarios. In recent years, the Stugna P has become an increasingly important part of Ukraine's military strategy, as the country has faced more and more aggression from Russia. Despite Western material support, the phase of the war which began with the 2022 invasion has placed a great deal of strain on the Ukrainian military's capabilities, and the Stugna P has proven to be one of the most valuable assets in the defense of Ukrainian territory. The missile's versatility, accuracy, and effectiveness against armor has made it an essential component of the Ukrainian military's effort to protect its citizens and defend its sovereignty. Because of all these factors, the Stugna P missile has become a critical part of Ukraine's military arsenal. And as mentioned, the grinding, ever-changing artillery war in Ukraine's east is an ideal environment for a weapon like the Stugna P, since it can often avoid the punishing retaliations Russia directs against larger missile systems. As the conflict in the east continues, there is little doubt that the Stugna P will likely remain vitally important. Yet questions still remain about whether the weapon captured on video was simply a Stugna P missile, or whether there were more elements involved in the attack. There has been some speculation that the strike was not in fact a Stugna, but rather some sort of drone strike. Some have claimed the possibility of a Turkish Bayraktar drone, which Ukraine has received a number of since last year. Others instead argued that the Death Ray is another variant of unmanned vehicle. One former Army colonel, who asked not to be named, told Newsweek that the attack may have involved a US-manufactured Switchblade drone, a loitering kamikaze munition which dive bombs a target and destroys itself on impact. Last year, the US committed to sending Ukraine more than 700 Switchblades, which are also capable of precision strikes. Retired Colonel Mark F. Kantsian of the Center for Strategic and International Studies has stated that the Death Ray could have either been a Stugna or some form of drone that fires rockets after approaching its target. Either possibility highlights the deadly effectiveness of Ukraine's weapons technology and training, and that while Ukrainians may have been outgunned at the start of the invasion, they aren't anymore. Whatever the Death Ray may be, videos like this one make it clear that the future of the war in Ukraine will almost certainly revolve around the strategic use of technology. But let us know what you think. Was the video of a Stugna missile, drone, or something else entirely? And just how much has technology leveled the odds?